You are the living God. There's no one like you. Ekueme, 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 ekueme. You are the living God. There's no one like you. Ekueme, 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 ekueme. You are the living God. There's no one like you. La, 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 la. Ma, la, 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 ma, no, la, la, la. You are the living God. There's no one like you. Ma, la, 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 no, go, ma. La, 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 no, so, na, yeah, ga, ba, sha. Hello, na, 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 no, no. There's no one like you. You're my healer, you are my keeper, my restorer, my life giver. You are the living God. There's no one like you. No one can do me like you do. No one can touch me like you do, God. Hey, you are the living God. There's no one like you. You pick me from the miry clay, set my feet on the rock to stay. You are my promoter, you are my defender. You are the living God. There's no one like you.
Land of the rising sun, we long and cherish. Beloved home, land of our great heroes. We must defend our lives so we shall perish. We shall protect our hearts from all our foes. But if the prize is dead for all we hold dear, then let us die without a shred of fear.
This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.
We call on you today, O God. God of our ancestors, God of our forefathers, God that has placed our people on the land we presently live today, God of Biafra. Today is a day of remembrance, the day of atonement, the day we renew our vow before you, O God. We have gathered to offer prayers to you, the Almighty One, the great denizen that oversees all that is in the universe, the great albatross, the elephant that tramples all that is nefarious, Alpha and Omega, the benevolent one. Today is a remarkable day in the annals of our people's history. The day we remember the millions that have been deprived of their lives, the life you, God, have given to them. The day we gather to give the mantle to our leaders, to seek and move forward in the right ways in order to extricate ourselves from the shackles of bondage. It is good to die on one's feet rather than to live on one's knees. We are still in that journey to extricate ourselves from the extreme bondage. Today we pray for freedom. We pray for freedom from subjugation, freedom from annihilation. We have suffered enough from the hands of those out to extinguish our lights. Today we call on you, Great One. Forgive us our trespasses, all that we have done to come short of your glory, O God. Remove all those shackles of bondage out of our hands and feet. Give us that wisdom to face our adversaries. Raise great men with wisdom and vision to sail this boat. In you we trust, O God. We say,
This is BCB breaking news. News from Biafra. Abductions and killings, especially of youths, are presently happening in Biafra. Disturbing news has reached us from Abia, Anambra, Enugu, Ebonyi, and Imo states that for more than 1 month now, members of the Nigerian army and police have been kidnapping innocent civilians who are engaged in daily activities from their homes, markets, businesses, and churches. A video supposedly shot on 23rd April 2021 shows more than 10 military Hilux trucks of security forces who descend on Izombe Uguta in Imo State and abducted several young men whom they loaded into these trucks and drove off. The individual who recorded the event reported that no reason was given for the abduction or where the young men were taken. As we approach May 30th, Biafra Remembrance Day, the threat against Biafran youth is escalating. Reports are coming in of increasing incidents of Biafran youth abductions by Nigerian police and security officials driving Hilux trucks. The youths are reportedly taken to undisclosed locations, no evidence, no reasons provided for their abductions, and families are not informed of their whereabouts. Here are some recent incidents. 15th May 2021, Aqua Kuma Junction. The individual recording the event reported that there were 7 Hilux trucks. The police arrived and seized many young men to fill their trucks, then drove off with them. The youth have not been seen since then. 18th May 2021, Aba, Abia State. Another video tells of soldiers and police arresting 20 young Igbo men. They bundled the youth into Hilux trucks and drove off to unknown locations. These security forces claim that those arrested have dreadlocks and were wearing torn jeans. 19th May 2021, Umuonyali Mbiri, Imo State. The military again reportedly abducted youths whom they forced into 3 Hilux trucks. Family members claim that they do not know where the abducted young men are and have not been provided any explanations either for the abductions. Various videos and reports, including one from an Owerri radio station shared online state that policemen and other security personnel are terrorizing civilians, breaking into homes and businesses, destroying their cars and properties, beating and stabbing unarmed civilians, shooting at fleeing citizens, and firing shots into the air in complete disregard for human life. In some cases, young people have been wounded. The citizens who have experienced these incidents say that there was no provocation for these acts. There is no indication that these policemen were looking for any criminals or that any crimes have been committed in the first place. The citizens also indicate that these security forces seem to be non-Igbo speaking. What is therefore imagined is a new onslaught on Biafrans, the disappearance of its youth. In other words, the goal seems to be the destruction of the future generation of our people and ultimately the death of our people. We, Biafrans, call upon the governors of the eastern states to give urgent attention to these threats and to provide explanations for the hostile actions of their security forces. We demand the release of our youths and a recognition of the human rights of all our people. Anti-open grazing resolution by 17 southern governors. About 8 states of southern Nigeria have set in motion steps to give legal backing to a complete ban on open grazing in the region. This comes after the recent meeting of the state governors under the umbrella of the Southern Governors Forum held at Asaba, the capital of Delta State, recently. The states include Akwa Ibom, Ondo, Enugu, Edo, Imo, Ogun, Delta, and Anambra. In the communique released after the said meeting, the governors strongly called for a total ban on open grazing in their territories. Their resolution has received wide endorsement from the people of the affected states. The Igbo sociopolitical organization Ohaneze Ndi has declared full support for the governor's resolution. Mr. Alex Obonna, National Publicity Secretary of Ohaneze, told reporters that the resolution of the governors would go a long way in dealing with prolonged cases of destruction of farmlands by Fulani cattle and livestock herders. He also pointed that herders have been allowed to carry guns, which gives them courage to attack villages with impunity. It must be noted that many of these states already have anti-open grazing laws, but these laws were ineffective because of lack of commitment on the part of the local law enforcement. Despite this, the 8 states and others are now set to enact anti-open grazing laws following the pronouncement of the 17 governors. Mass migration of northern youths to eastern states of Nigeria have continued unabated. The police and the civil defense force have again intercepted a Dangote trailer transporting hundreds of Fulani youths to eastern Nigeria. This has raised alarm and fear in the Biafran homelands. In a video that has now gone viral, a Dangote trailer was with a missing plate number was stopped by police for routine check. The driver informed the police that he was carrying bags of salt. However, on inspection, the policemen were shocked to see hundreds of Fulani men hiding inside the trailer. The driver was eventually ordered to return to his point of origin. Operation Restore Peace. The Inspector General of Police, IGP Usman Alkali Baba, has initiated a new special operational action plan codenamed Operation Restore Peace, supposedly for the stabilization of security in Southeast. The IGP declared that the operation was aimed at confronting violence and proliferation of weapons, as well as containing the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, and its armed wing, the Eastern Security Network. The transcript of his plan has raised alarm in the region, as many believe that the IGP is not sending the military to Eastern Nigeria on any peace mission. He states, quote, "Do not mind the media shout. Do the job I command you. If anyone accuses you of human rights violation, the report will come to my table, and you know what I will do. So take the battle to them wherever they are and kill them all. Do not wait for an order," unquote. It should be noted that this statement comes from a police force that has been accused of extrajudicial killings, extortion, and abuses that led to the SARS must go demonstrations last year, during which the police and army opened fire on unarmed protesters. It is also important to note that this Inspector General of Police has not offered any credible response to Boko Haram terrorists, the bandits, the murderous Fulani herdsmen, and Islamic State West African province, all of whom have claimed territories in northern Nigeria presently and have been terrorizing other states, including locations in Biafra land. Now, the same IGP is sending the police and army to execute unarmed women and children in Biafra land under the guise of restoring peace. My people, are you awake? Are you truly awake? We must get wiser. We must stand against tyranny, because we who believe in freedom cannot rest. Yes, yes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We cannot rest. We cannot stop until freedom comes. I am Rose Ama, and this is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. Fellow Biafrans, this is Rose Ama coming to you from the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. Today, May 30th, we mark Biafra Remembrance Day. Where is the memorial for our heroes, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, and children lost to a war whose memory and legacy still haunt us? Where are the national or regional markers for those we lost? Do you know where they are? Is there a memorial for the establishment of an independent Biafra? Is there a seat or marker somewhere in the land on which anyone could stop or sit to contemplate what Biafra means, or to recall those we lost to a genocidal war that was and is still being waged against us? You tell me. Please show me the place. On May 30th, 1967, Biafra declared itself independent from Nigeria. Today, May 30th, 2021, we remember that day that promised us freedom. We also remember those we lost more than 50 years ago, as well as those whom we have lost in the struggle to gain that promised freedom. We remember our brothers and sisters. We remember our fathers and mothers. We remember our relatives. We remember our friends and allies, those who stood beside us in the struggle. We thank them for sacrificing their lives that we may live. We ask them to forgive us. We ask them to bless and guide us on our difficult quest for freedom. We remember ourselves. We grant ourselves permission to recall. We grant ourselves permission to mourn for our lost ones. We grant ourselves permission to mourn for ourselves. we grant ourselves permission to celebrate ourselves. We grant ourselves permission to be human. We are Biafrans. We are here to stay. We shall never be exterminated, erased, buried, enslaved, or dehumanized. We invite you to join us in this act of remembrance.
I am Biafra, the name on vogue, ringing bells to arouse the conscience of the stone hearts. There the pertinent question still lingers like a cloud. It hovers above the vicinity. How can one be an alien in his own land? Now I am striving to be free. It's only in the dark that one cannot see the rays of light. I am Biafra, the nation that stood on the east while the Niger River flows across the middle of the land, where the sun never fails to rise. Blessed are the shores of my land, yet greedy hands have descended to make my land a living hell. Buzzards have descended on the neck and breadth of my land. It's now engulfed by various tentacles. Oh, how I have wept to fill a huge lake. Oh, how I have stood the test of time despite the agonies of their wickedness. Oh, how I weep for my travel sojourn with strange fellows, merged without my knowledge. The hatred of stone heats up the polity where I stand. Devoid of all sympathy, old as the hills I stood until they came. Those foreigners from the land beyond, the hills of our land, we know them not, yet they came to claim our land for themselves. Now, how can we be aliens owned by foreigners in our own land? They roped me with a tangled web, shackling my hands and feet until I have no more guides. Oh, how I remember the days past. All was well until then foreigners came to unleash the venom that is the center of my main debacle. My glory has been dampened beyond belief. The great gauge that is my name can't ever be dented. I am Biafra. I will always stand like a castle on a granite rock. On top of the mountain, I can be seen in all majesty, hated by most. 1,000 axes have descended on me in this nation of woes. And now, I'm now with people that does not know the meaning of life. People who did not even know the meaning of a nation. People that did not know the meaning of a nation. They thought I'm gone. They thought I'm dead, but I'm alive. They left me comatose at the crossroads in the middle of the day in broad daylight. Those that punish the good and they reward the bad, where minority overrides the majority. I am in a quadrangle where the main cities are found in the dense jungles mingling with cows, those that have mortgaged their souls on the citadels of evil. They thought I'm dead. I am still alive, for they saw me buried in a cloud of dust, raised by a multitude of boots, after they have descended on me with iron rods, the jack boots brigades of a sort. I have once again risen like the morning light. I have risen to baffle the world, evil harbingers of the apocalypse. They stream down with evil hearts, oozing nothing but death. On the 30th of May, I sat down to count my teeth. I found them missing with millions of holes. They nearly exterminated me while the world watched with folded arms, where orphans died in droves. What a wicked world. Biafra is my name, and I will rise to baffle the world. I will rise from the dust to the amazement of humanity. Like a mountain, I will stand the test of time. I am Biafra, and I am still alive. This is Ikechukwu Ezelora of BCB. Have a wonderful day.
This is BCB, and I am Rose Ama. We continue our Remembrance Day program. When on May 30th, 1967, Biafra declared itself independent from Nigeria, it was a response to the pogroms waged against Biafrans, mostly Igbos, in various cities in Nigeria. No matter how much those who wish to deny it try, the federal government of Nigeria has committed genocide against Biafrans, particularly Igbos, since 1966. It is a carefully laid out plan to exterminate or eradicate Biafrans. Genocide. What is, in a word? According to the UN Office on Genocide Prevention and the Responsibility to Protect, the word genocide was first coined by Polish lawyer Raphael Lemkin in 1944 in his book Axis Rule in Occupied Europe. Consisting of two important parts, quote, the Greek prefix genus, meaning race or tribe, and the Latin suffix "cide," meaning killing, unquote, genocide as defined by the Oxford Dictionary is, quote, the deliberate and systematic extermination of an ethnic or national group, unquote. Simply put, it is the destruction or the elimination of a nation or ethnic group. It does not have to happen all at once. It can progress slowly through various acts aimed at elimination of the group. According to the 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, which is now known as the Genocide Convention, genocide is a crime under international law. The International Court of Justice states that, quote, whether or not states have ratified the Genocide Convention, they are all bound as a matter of law by the principle that genocide is a crime prohibited under international law, unquote. Why is this important to us? The answer is simple. The Nigerian government committed genocide against Biafrans between 1966 and 1970 and has continued its project to the present. Yes, it was genocide, the first in a post-colonial Africa. And yes, it is still genocide. While the cases of Rwanda and Darfur, Sudan have been recognized as genocide by the International Criminal Court and seem to be prominent in our consciousness, the massacre of over 3 million Biafrans in 3 years of war cannot be ignored or swept under the rug. It is particularly important today as the federal government of Nigeria has continued its genocidal project under Muhammadu Buhari. The mass killings, rapes of Biafran women and girls, displacement of Biafrans either by Hausa mobs who kill Biafrans or destroy their businesses in northern cities, or by the Fulani herdsmen, those agents of Boko Haram and the Islamic State who raid and pillage Biafran communities and murder the residents, represent the continuation of a project to annihilate us. Biafrans have not been safe since the pogrom of 1966. Remembering Biafra, 1966. Pogroms across the land. Over 30,000 Biafrans, majority of whom were of Igbo descent, men, women, and children, were massacred within a short period of 3 months in a revenge pogrom, thus sending close to 2 million Igbo refugees fleeing from the northern and western parts of Nigeria to eastern Nigeria, leaving behind their dead ones, homes, and businesses. Those living in northern Nigeria at the time still recall numerous accounts of the atrocities committed against Biafrans in several northern cities, screaming Araba, Araba. Hausas killed Biafrans, particularly Igbos, pillaging their businesses in Kano, Kaduna, Sokoto, Zaria, and Minna, to name a few. Igbo women and girls were raped and killed. Pregnant women were massacred and their bellies cut open. The unborn babies were removed and hacked to pieces, or their heads smashed and kicked around like football. Mr. Eric Spiff, a German war correspondent, provides an eyewitness account of 1967. Quote, in northern Nigeria, numerous Biafran housewives and nursing mothers were violated before their husbands and children. Young girls were abducted from their homes, working places, and schools, and forced into intimate intercourse with sick, demented, and leprous men, unquote. Also, Biafrans were not safe in Western Nigerian cities either. They were being killed in Lagos and Ibadan, for instance. By 1967, it was evident that a war with the federal government of Nigeria was imminent. May 30th, 1967, Biafra declared itself independent from Nigeria. But a free and independent Biafra was simply a threat too great to allow. In their own words, Nigerian state officials delineate their genocidal project. Quote, starvation is a legitimate aspect of war, unquote, said Anthony Enahoro, Nigerian Commissioner for Information, at a press conference in New York in July 1968. While Brigadier Benjamin Adekunle of the Nigerian Army told a French radio reporter, quote, I want to see no Red Cross, no Caritas, no World Council of Churches, no Pope, no missionary, and no UN delegation. I want to prevent even one Igbo having even one thing to eat before their capitulation, unquote. The Igbos must be considerably reduced in number, said a Lagos policeman who was quoted in the New York Review on December 21st, 1967. The New York Times of January 1968 reported, quote, Federal troops killed or stood by while mobs killed more than 5,000 Igbos in Warri Sapele Agbo, unquote. Let us go and crush them. We will pillage their property, violate their womenfolk, kill off their menfolk, and leave them uselessly weeping. We will complete the pogrom of 1966 was the theme song of the government-controlled Radio Kaduna between 1967 and 1970. When General Odumegwu Ojukwu declared Biafra an independent nation on May 30th, 1967, only a handful of African nations recognized the newly born nation. In 1968, President Julius Nyerere of Tanzania became the first African leader to recognize the independence of Biafra. Only 3 other African nations, Gabon, Cote d'Ivoire, and Zambia, recognized Biafra's independence. We use this opportunity to thank these nations for standing beside the young, vulnerable Biafra at that time. The remaining African nations, claiming a commitment to Pan-Africanism, stood by and watched as more than 3 million Igbos were killed. Indeed, this would be Africa's first post-colonial genocide, and African leaders and the international community were complicitous. Having pursued Biafrans into their homeland, the goal of the Nigerian government and its allies was to crush Biafrans, ground us into the dust. In her novel, Half of a Yellow Sun, Chimamanda Adichie describes such carnage and a woman whose child had died from the bombing crying, quote, "Gawan, what have I done to you? Gawan, ole ihe m mere gị?" Unquote. This is the cry of every mother. This was the cry of every mother, the cry of every Biafran, the questions of our young defenders, the question of the nation during those war years. Biafrans asked over and over and over, "Ezegworo, mere gịnị jiri buso m agha? Agha, agha," over and over, marching to it, children singing, chanting, over and over. Still, the Nigerian government persisted, deploying land and air strikes and blockades, including using starvation as a weapon of war, to the horror of some members of the international community. International humanitarian organizations, NGOs, and church organizations, including the Red Cross, Caritas, Médecins Sans Frontières, to mention a few, who paid attention would bear witness to a genocide in the making and under the eyes of the international community. Listen to some of their eyewitness accounts. The situation had become so dire that US Senator Edward Kennedy on Sunday, November 17, 1968, in an impassioned appeal to Americans pleaded, quote, "The loss of life from starvation continues at more than 10,000 persons per day, over 1 million lives in recent months. Without emergency measures now, the number will climb to 25,000 per day within a month and some 2 million deaths by the end of the year. The new year will only bring greater disaster to a people caught in the passion of fratricidal war. We cannot allow this to continue or those responsible to go free," unquote. The Washington Post editorial of July 2nd, 1969 reported, quote, "One word now describes the policy of the Nigerian military government towards Biafra: genocide. It is ugly and extreme, but it is the only word which fits Nigeria's decision to stop the International Committee of the Red Cross and other relief agencies from flying food to Biafra. The Nazis had resurrected such just here as Nigerian forces," unquote. Biafrans have suffered, starved, died, and survived. It is a story whose memory many of us carry like turtles carrying their shells. We may be scarred, but we are not broken, never broken. We have suffered, yet we are resilient. Our dream is singular: freedom, peace, security, and justice. For more than 50 years, we have been resilient. More than 50 years after the war, our resources have been exploited, our communities destroyed, our people massacred, our youth killed daily, our women and daughters kidnapped and raped, our rights violated, and our land desecrated and left in tatters. Yet, the international community watches in silence, as it did during the pogroms and genocidal war from 1966 to 1970, where more than 3 million lives were lost. So, when will the international community recognize this ongoing genocide? This is a Holocaust. But against all odds, we shall overcome. We shall defend ourselves against all threats, known and unknown, local or international. The spirit of Biafra lives. And as the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. said, quote, "Oppressed people cannot remain oppressed forever. The yearning for freedom eventually manifests itself," unquote. This is what has happened to Biafra. Okay, hello, my people. Hello, Biafrans. This is Rosama with the Prime Minister. We have here a very special occasion, and at this moment, we would like to hear from the Prime Minister. This is hopefully a wonderful opportunity to hear him talk about his aspirations, for Biafra, and, a special message to you. So I begin by asking the Prime Minister, more than 50 years after the Biafra-Nigeria war, we return to Biafra. Is it a reality or ideology for you as you see it? Why now? In other words, could you clarify for those who are not sure why we are fighting, what Biafra means to you and to those who are fighting for it?
Thank you very much, Rose. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to all Biafrans, depending on where we are. any part of the globe where you are. I bring you warm greetings, and I'm very happy to be speaking to you on this very special occasion of Biafra Remembrance Day, a special day, 30th May, that we remember all those who paid the ultimate price for us to be free. The question of what does Biafra mean for me, and I would like all of us, both at home and in diaspora, to take this very, very clearly. Biafra means freedom. Biafra means opportunity. It means self-determination, that we are able to decide for ourselves how we want to govern ourselves, who we want to interact with, who we want to associate with politically. It is an inalienable right, a right enshrined in the Human Rights Charter of the United Nations. Biafra means development and growth. Biafra means respect for human rights and for humanity. It means competition, ability for men and women to excel in an environment that is conducive, that is free, that gives them that opportunity to be able to show what they can do without being stifled by some sort of laws that are against them, and some sort of regime or rules that are against them. Biafra means decency, decency of life for every man, every woman, every child. This is what we are lacking. Biafra means innovation. We are very, very creative people. We are very, very innovative people. But this skill and this ability is being trampled upon because of the situation we find ourselves. Biafra means equality, fairness, and justice. Biafra means, above all, that we preserve our race, that we are able to succeed, that we are not annihilated, that we are not wiped out off the face of the earth as the enemy is planning to do, that we are able to hand over to generations to come a nation that they can be proud of, they can be free in, that they can live in and compete fairly and justly with each other. Biafra means our ability to reinvent ourselves, reinvent our society, our democracy, and our economic advancement. If we go back to the 60s, to the time that Michael Okpara, Dr. Emma Okpara was premier of the Eastern region, Biafra was indeed, or Eastern region at the time, was indeed the most developing economy in the whole of Africa and Southeast Asia. There were over 128 industries and factories springing up all over Eastern Nigeria, good paying jobs, men and women were engaged. The economy was growing faster than any other economy in Africa and in Asia. And that is what Biafra means to all of us. During the war, our scientists, our young people, out of their ingenuity, we are able to do the impossible. We refined crude oil, even in the face of bombardments and in difficult circumstances, and got our vehicles running. We produced hardware and software that are able to sustain our troops who fought gallantly in the war, and to sustain the civil population as well. In the auto industry, we are key to the development that the current situation we found ourselves in Nigeria would have enjoyed. But due to the strangulation we find ourselves, we are not able to develop this industry. You will not go far to see examples. You see, currently Innocent producing and manufacturing vehicles is being stifled And that company is not even given any breathing space to develop. And we had Dr. Ezekiel Izog of blessed memory. It's very sad that he's passed away. That first designed a vehicle that was meant to be produced in Naza in Imo State. But the military junta of General Abacha then, killed it, reneged on the promise of a loan that would have meant that we produce the first vehicle in Africa. And that dream died because it was from a Biafran. So it means a lot to us that in this generation and generations to come, we are able to find ourselves in a free society, a nation we can call ourselves, where we can be free. Everyone can be free to develop, to grow, and experience what it means to live in a modern society. And you have the basic things of water, of shelter, of good health, of basic health provision, and of the basic infrastructure that we need. I'll give you an example. Today, in Southeast Nigeria and Biafra land, the difficult circumstances that even people find to get just basic health care, and or even women to give birth safely, it's non-existent. If you're pregnant and you're going to the hospital to give birth, you have to provide all the materials that you need, including disinfectant and hand gloves, or else nobody will take care of you. And you have to bribe nurses and doctors to be able to be looked after. And that is not where we want to be. We want to be in a situation where we can experience the modern development and enjoy freedom and be free and receive the basic things of life that every human being is entitled to. Under this stifling condition, under this servitude, under Nigeria government of fully controlled by the Islamic State and the Caliphate, they have fully made it impossible for us to have that sort of development, have decent life that every human being on earth deserves. And for us, that is what Biafra means. For every man and women at home and in diaspora, we want to go home and be safe and not being harassed. We want to go to our farms and be safe and come back. We want to have good jobs. We want to have the opportunity to develop. We want to undertake missions, even space missions, going to the moon, doing research. And because we have engineers, we have scientists all over the world excelling and doing well. But in Nigeria, we are not allowed to excel. The current head of the WTO, World Trade Organization, Biafra, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and many of them scattered all over, are leaving the shores of Biafra land, Southeast Nigeria, going abroad to excel and be the best in what they are doing. But they are never given a chance back home, in a place they call home. And now we are being surrounded by AK-47 welding headsmen who are ready, in the name of their God, Allah, to exterminate our people, killing, maiming, raping on a daily basis. So it's become a case that we have to exist. We reserve the right to exist and not to be wiped away. So for us, that's what Biafra means. That we can live and be free and develop according to the way God has made it for us to develop.
Okay, my people, fellow Biafrans, you have heard our Prime Minister. He's given us a very visionary definition of Biafra and what it promises. I see a nation of possibilities that is inclusive and safe and respects the rights and dignity of all. Thank you, Prime Minister. So now you might be asking, what next? In terms of structure, the construction of the nation. So some people, all groups, are proposing a type of confederation of states or regions. For instance, A few weeks ago or days ago, NINAS, the Nigerian Indigenous Alliance for Self-Determination, suggested that regional autonomy and self-determination would be, the process. They point out that there is no need for secession since Nigeria no longer exists as a country because the current constitution of Nigeria, they say, has been broken by the 12 contiguous northern states who have adopted Sharia law and proclaimed themselves Islamic states. So, what is your position on this? Is regional autonomy an option? Let's hear from you.
Thank you very much. This is a very good question. And before I go into my answer, I want to pay tribute and respect to Mr. Tony Nadi, who is the secretary for the Lower Niger Congress, the LNC, who are the main partners and main initiators of this NINA's proposition. And he's worked incredibly hard to develop this structure and this idea of partners from the Lower Niger Territory, which is essentially Biafra, the Southeast Nigeria at the moment, and the Middle Belt Territory, and of course, the Southwest, the Oduduwa Republic Territory, bringing them into this alliance. I want to thank him. He's a good friend, and I speak to him all the time. And he's worked really hard to get this program going towards self-determination. So is regional autonomy an option? So I want to say this, and I want to be very clear. Regional autonomy was an option. And I stress the word was an option. And it's not anymore. I don't think it's an option anymore, except as a conscious stage or a conscious first step towards self-determination through a referendum or a plebiscite. Why do I say this? I take you back to Aburi in the 60s, just before, when after the first coup that Major Zorwo carried out with his team, which people have erroneously termed Igbo coup, but it's actually not an Igbo coup. It was actually some Igbo officers responding to a cry for help from their Yoruba colleagues who were about to be annihilated by the Sokoto Caliphate led administration of Nigeria at the time. There were plans to overrun the West, and just like every Biafran, every woman would do, they do not like injustice. They do not like where you are mistreating someone or you're killing someone who is innocent. We don't like it. We go and fight for strangers. And so these officers responded and said, no, what is happening in the West is a travesty. We will not allow this to happen. So they went over to fight, to help their colleagues, the Yoruba officers, stop that plan that was hatched by the federal government against the Western region. And so we had that coup, and then there was a counter coup by the Hausas and Fulanis that slaughtered a lot of Igbos and Biafrans in the armed forces, and which led to the pogrom. And so Juku, our leader at the time, went to the conference in Aburi in Ghana to seek resolution, to find a way that this killing of his people in the north, the slaughtering of his people in the north, will stop. And mind you, it wasn't actually killing by mob or people who actually hate us, but the police, the military, the same people that were actually meant to protect our people in northern Nigeria turned their guns on defenseless Biafrans and slaughtered them. It was incredible. And to the extent that it was reported as something that the world has never seen before, the killing of Biafrans in the north in 1966. Waves and waves of pogrom, 3 waves actually. And so Ojukwu went to prepare and went for this conference with Gowon and the other leaders in Aburi, Ghana. And they deliberated under the chairmanship of General Ankara, the leader of Ghana at the time. And after the summit, they signed, we've seen pictures where after they've reached agreement, everyone was happy, they were eating and they were toasting champagne and everyone was happy. And I've listened to the interview our leader, later Odubego Ojukwu gave, and things that happened after that. And General Ankara was escorting them back to the airport for them to fly back. And Ojukwu actually, in happiness of that agreement that was reached, considered the leadership of the Supreme Council to go on. And they were all happy. General Ankara said, "Oh, look, Chukwuemeka, what you've done is incredible." Even though he was the superior officer, he was the most intelligent officer, most learned officer at the time, and more senior to go on. So that will show you how much he wanted peace, how much he wanted the killing of his people to stop, how much he wanted the federation to survive in the right way. And what happened? What was that agreement? It was confederation. It was regional autonomy. It was that same autonomy that the founding fathers negotiated at independence. It was what gave rise to the granite pyramids in the north, the cocoa in the west, the palm oil in the east, and the competition, the healthy competition that made the country to thrive after independence. So that was agreed then. And what happened? Gowon came back and reneged on the agreement because some civil servants, selfish civil servants at the time, advised him against implementing it, and that directly led to the war. Nigeria had to attack our people, and we had to fight in self-defense, and lost over 3.5 million lives by so doing. So it was an option at the time. It was agreed. And some people derailed it. And now fast forward to the time of President Goodluck Jonathan, a fine, intelligent man again, who convened the National Convention, a national conference. Representatives of every part of the land was in that conference. Huge sums of money was spent. And agreement was reached. And what was the agreement? Regional autonomy. Yorubas agreed, Igbos agreed, all the tribes in the Middle Belt represented, everyone agreed, it was documented. Guess what? He lost the election, couldn't implement it, he lost the election, General Buhari took over. And what did Buhari do in the first time, in the first week in office? Tore the whole paper and dumped it in the trash can. And an Al Jazeera interviewer asked him a question: why are you not implementing the wish of the people through this conference? And his response was, the conference should not have happened in the first place. Can you imagine that?
Mm-hmm.
The wishes of the people by a single man dumped in the trash can.
Mm.
It cost time and money. And the leader of the Eastern delegation to that conference, I happened to meet him when the conference was in session in London. He came for a program in London, Professor Anya, and I met him in the corridor, and he saw me wearing a Biafran flag, and he said to me, son, come. You guys should just calm down. This conference will solve our problem. We're going back to regional autonomy. I said to him, sir, this will not work. I fear that the Fulanis believe that Nigeria is the estate given to their father Usman Danfodio by their God Allah, and they will do everything humanly possible to get rid of us. They will not allow regional autonomy, even if it's the right thing. And he said to me, no, this is different. The Yorubas are with us. This will happen. And the president is committed. He's got the will to see this through. I said, fine and good, that it will not stop our agitation. What happened in the end? Buhari took over and the whole thing was flushed down the drain. So it was an option then, but it's too late now. You know, they've sent their army down south, be it Boko Haram, be it Fulani headsmen. They armed them, deliberately armed them to start taking over territories, taking over land from us, start killing people in our territory. So the fight, the war has already begun. They've started killing people in our places. They came through the scheme of Ruga, and people rose up against it. And they are still asking for land in our place for them to establish cattle colonies. And these are subtle ways of trying to take over the territory and Islamize the whole area. It is either going to be the sword or the Quran. Historically, we know what is coming. And that is why we will have to stand up and say no, or else there'll be nothing like Biafra. There'll be no tribe in Biafra land that will exist when they finish their jihadist oppression. So unless the their National Assembly through another national conference agree to put in place in the constitution a new constitution, I must say, because the 1999 constitution that is being used is a rogue document. It's not the people's constitution. And I commend Tony Nade and Minas and LNC for fighting so hard towards bringing that constitution down. And it should be brought down because it was written by the North for the North, not for any other person. So unless a new constitution puts in place a provision for a referendum for every indigenous nationality in that space, then regional autonomy will not be an option.
Okay. All right. This is wonderful. Usman Danfodio, you take us back to history, of course. You know, those who know or who have read Nigerian history would realize that Usman Danfodio's empire was limited to the Sokoto Caliphate. That's way too far away up north. So it should remain there. You know, the idea of Islamizing the whole country sounds to me like an imperial project. You know,
Absolutely.
the neo-colonization. And so who wants to be colonized? Biafrans do not want to be colonized.
No, we never did.
We've never
been conquered in history.
Okay.
Never.
So,
and it will not happen because of the nature of the type of people we are.
Absolutely. So, as you have mentioned, also Biafrans, you know, were massacred during the, you know, in the pogrom and the war. And in fact, many Biafrans, specifically Igbos, were killed in other Nigerian cities outside the East. And that, you know, this would even include the northern cities where a lot of us were massacred. So let me ask, in thinking of Biafra today, who or what would you include? You know, given the diversity of ethnicities in contention, and as we're talking about, you know, this just a few minutes ago, this regional autonomy, and some people still pressing for that. How do you assure those groups who are reluctant to join this struggle for Biafra that it is also for them, or that their voice is important?
Thank you very much. That's a very, very pertinent question. Um, what I will say, and I will really want everyone listening, every Biafran, to understand this. There was a country, and if you read the book by Chinua Achebe, there was a country. It's clear that in this dispensation, we are trying to restore what was a country that was. It's not a new nation. So it had its territory, it had its passport, it had its currency, it had its people. So there, that country lost a war of survival, and the Nigerian Federal Forces occupied the territory. And that territory is known. However, things have moved on for nearly 50 years plus now. Um, and keep in mind that in declaring that country in May 30, 1967, our leader, General Chukwuemeka Odumegwu, did not do that unilaterally. Even though he was the military head of state of Eastern Nigeria at the time, he never did that unilaterally. On the contrary, he was actually forced to do that by the Eastern Consultative Assembly. Even though he was a military ruler, leader in the South, in the East, he knew his people. He was from one of the wealthiest family in Africa. His father was, incredibly wealthy. He went to one of the best schools in the world, and incredibly learned and intelligent. And he wanted to make things for himself without relying on his father's name or his father's wealth. So he joined the army on a very low rank, and he went to Eastern Nigeria, to his homeland, and spent time with his people. So he understood that our people were our Democrats. We consult. Nobody lords it over another. That is why in Igbo language, in Igbo proverb, we say, Igbo enweze. It doesn't mean we don't physically have kings or Ndieze or Ndigwe and all that. It means that they govern through a council of the people, and authority, as we know our history, flows from the family heads to the village heads to the community, and then and the Igwes or the Ezes are the repositories of that authority, and they exercise it through council of the people, of elected people from each village. So he knew that. So he, instead of being a dictator, which he could be, or doing things, by military fiat, by on his own, he constituted an assembly of the people. And if you look at that list of 336 members of that assembly, they were drawn from the whole part of Biafra land, from Aniocha to Igbo land, to Ijo land, to Efik, to Dibio, to Ishan land. All the ethnic nationalities within the territory were represented within that council. And it was the council when the killing became, unbearable in the north, that the council mandated to look at, stories, the books written by whether it's Forsyth or Susanna Kronje and Oberon Wu, people who witnessed things firsthand at the time. They all said that the assembly had to force General Ojukwu to declare Biafra. So it was that democratic setting that he put in place, that was enforced during that period. And all our people in the whole land, we are part of it. And in the war as well. My uncle, who is nearly 85 years old now, who fought in the war and survived, was telling me just a few months ago that whatever we do in in this restoration project, we must not forget the ethnic people, our cousins, our brothers uh, in the ethnic nation, because they fought as hard as we did. We were in the trenches with them, and they were reliable, and they were as even better Biafrans than we are. So in this dispensation, it would be wrong, if I put it that way, for any group within the Biafra agitation. So we have a lot of groups, and we have a central government now that majority of the groups are working within. It would be wrong for us to unilaterally say that, oh, these people are part of the Biafra we're trying to restore, or these people are not. So in that democratic sense that we believe in, the right thing to do is to have a detailed, comprehensive engagement with our people all across the 10 states of Biafra land, from um, Bayelsa State to River State, to Delta State, to Boeing State, Imo State, Anambra, Enugu, Abia State. All the ethnic nationalities situated in those states will be consulted. And the Biafra provisional government is actively and fully engaging our people at all levels, speaking to people, meeting people, communities, and asking the question, what do you want? Do you support? Do you want us to be a separate free nation, or do you want us to still be in Nigeria? We need to ask that question. We need to listen to people from Ijoland to Efik land, to Isoko land, to Ishan land, to Bibio. We need to meet. We have a team that is out there in the field, meeting people, having these discussions, listening to people, understanding what the fears of the people are, and then presenting to them a structure that will give them confidence that going forward, they will be much better off in Biafra than we are in Nigeria. And the binding and guiding document that we're working with is called the Biafra Charter. The charter constituting the government of the Federation of Biafra. And I just want to quote from section B of that charter. Just what we are telling the people as we go from local government to local government and meeting our people, to give them confidence where they have chosen and decided, especially because of what is happening currently, that we will be safer, we will develop better as a free nation, with equal opportunities than we are at the moment. So I just want to quote section 1, subsection 1 of section B of the Biafra Charter, which is our working document. Okay. And it says, and I quote, Biafra shall be constituted of autonomous, self-governing, self-regulating entities called provinces, along with their respective populations, who have mutually decided and mutually chosen to create an umbrella governance system called the Government of the Federation of Biafra, otherwise known as Biafra, to which these participating provinces, or peoples if you like, give the power and authority carried out through the instrument of properly and formally elected representation of the provinces to constitute such the government of the Federation of Biafra, with all the implications of government thereof. End of quote. So the important thing is the sense that every ethnic nationality within Biafra should not fear about being dominated, about being controlled. Actually, in this agitation that this project we're carrying out, the message is that in the restored Biafra, there will be nothing like minority group. Equality, fairness, justice will remain the beacon of the nation. So every part, every federating unit, be it provinces, or we call them states, or we call them, or even we call them by the names of the ethnic nationalities, say Ijaw Nation, Igbo Nation, Efik, Ibibio. Each one will have the same opportunity, will have the same rights and privileges. Each one will be autonomous, controlling the resources that God has given them in their own land. Ability to develop them, monetize them, grow them, and contribute an agreed percentage to the center. So they will have their own security arrangements, their own policing, they'll have their own economic structures, they will have their own education strategies, health strategies. Like you live in the United States, you know this, that each federating state of the United States have their own constitutions, they have their own police, they have their own laws. And that is the way it should be. You know, it shouldn't be the situation that we have now in Nigeria. Our politicians carry begging bowls running to Abuja every single day, begging for crumbs. You know, and people are feeding themselves fat from what they call the national cake. And that's no way to run any nation or any government. None of the states in Nigeria today is viable. You know, every month they can barely meet their recurrent expenditure. And you're not even talking about, you know, proper capital expenditure, infrastructural development that sustain nations into future generations. So by all standards, the country is that contraption is failed. It's failed. Decades and decades and decades of injustice and mismanagement is made it almost impossible for them to carry on in that way. It is impossible for that contraption to survive as a nation. It was never a nation, and it's almost impossible for it to survive as a nation. The best thing we need to do is to extricate ourselves in a peaceful, democratic fashion and become that nation that God has created us to be. And for everyone, do not fear. We are a democratic people. We will build a nation on the basis of equality, fairness, and justice. And every federating province or unit, all the ethnic nationalities within Biafra will have power to control their resources. Power will flow from the communities going up and not a top to bottom approach, which is killing the present Nigeria.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I want to thank the Prime Minister before we take this short break for addressing the geographical and structural, scope of Biafra. Perhaps this will assure people and provide some clarity for those people who are asking, what would Biafra be like? What would constitute Biafra? I'm also glad to hear that the Biafra Provisional Government is engaged in a series of conversations with all the groups, involved in this particular struggle. We will take a short break and we will be right back. This is BCB.
Mass up.
Non-violence, non-exodus.
Mass up.
Non-violence, non-exodus.
Mass up.
Victory is sure. We are massive, fighting for our freedom. In the name of Jesus, we shall conquer. We are massive, fighting for our freedom. In the name of Jesus, we shall conquer. On behalf of the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra, MASO, we congratulate the board of directors and the leadership of BCB, Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, for their eloquent and dynamic efforts to reinvent BCB. Long live Biafra, long live BCB, long live MASO. We are massive, fighting for our freedom. In the name of Jesus, we shall conquer. We are massive, fighting for our freedom. In the name of Jesus, we must conquer. We are massive, fighting for our freedom. In the name of Jesus, we must conquer.
Fellow Biafrans, welcome back. We're continuing our conversations with people here in the diaspora who are committed to the cause for which we have been fighting, our freedom from Nigeria, our autonomy. I am here with another brother whom I will provide opportunity to introduce himself. Hopefully, we'll hear from him and he will help us better understand his take on Biafra, what it means for him, what it means to be engaged in this struggle, this long, long road to freedom for our people. Welcome, my brother. Please introduce yourself very briefly.
Thank you very much for having me on your program. My name is Sosita Ebiem. I'm glad to be here, and thank you and to the audience for coming in.
Thank you. This is a special day. This is May 30th, as you all know, as you are all present. You know it is May 30th. It is a commemorative occasion for us to recall, to remember, to celebrate, to mourn experiences, but to also remember that it was on May 30th, 1967, that we as Biafrans declared ourselves independent of an oppressive nation called Nigeria. So let's hear from our brother Osita. More than 50 years after the Biafra-Nigeria war, we returned to Biafra. I have been asking people, is Biafra a reality or an ideology for you, for us in general? Why return to the question of Biafra now? In other words, could you help us better understand what we are fighting for, why we are fighting? And this is especially important for those who keep saying, what is this all about? What does Biafra mean to you and those fighting for it?
Yes, it is indeed about 51 years ago that the Nigeria-Biafra war ended, and it was a horrifying experience for the entire Igbo people and the other people that were involved in Biafra. It is about 51 years ago that the Biafran state of 1967 that lasted till 1970 ceased from being. And in 1970, it was presumed, at least by those on the Nigerian side, that Biafra was, or at least should finally be dead. Undoubtedly, it could have largely been the case had the winners on the Nigerian side been less arrogant in their victory. They failed to manage more creatively their victory over Biafra. Unfortunately, they will learn the hard way that you can win a war, but may carelessly lose the peace. That is what happened in the case of Nigeria's victory over Biafra in 1970. In my opinion, the reason why Nigeria failed so miserably in managing creatively their victory over Biafra can be attributed to a few factors. One, the victorious Nigerians, in their arrogance, came to believe in the deceptive presumption that might is always right. As a result, in the usual victor's arrogance, they began to grossly disrespect their vanquished Biafran victims. Hence, the victors for the last 50 years continue to think that they could hold down their conquered victims in disdain, in perpetuity. Literally, they believed the entire Igbo land must remain in a permanent siege. A 50-year siege must be one of the world's longest running sieges of all time. For 50 years, the victors practiced systemic policies of exclusion and marginalization in politics, in workplaces, both career and skilled professionals, school admission, and virtually all aspects of Nigerian state life were restructured to be tilted against the Igbo. The list could go on, but these, among other reasons, are responsible for why every Igbo today returned to be Biafrans after more than 50 years of Ojuku's Biafra. The truth is that today's Biafra is as real as the Biafra of the 1960s. It might not have all the paraphernalia of a sovereign state, but it is far from being a fantasy. Every Igbo today is a Biafran because we are all victims of the Nigerian arrogance. The truth is that the Igbo did not suddenly wake up after these 50 years to start fighting for the freedom and independence of their people and land from Nigeria. The fact is that most Igbo, for all these years, never really surrendered their real sovereignty to Nigeria on January 15, 1970. The current Igbo fight for independence from Nigeria did not even start with the efforts of Ralph Uwazurike's movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra, MASOB. Other groups like Ekwenche, an Igbo cultural research institution, Biafra Government in Exile, BGIE, and Biafra Liberation in Europe, which later became Biafra Liberation in Exile, also known as BILIE, and many others have been working tirelessly towards Igbo freedom and independence. Some were there before MASOB, while others came after. Some of these groups were busy producing the intellectual and ideological documents and historical records and data. These are the basic foundational basis for the project. These groups, especially Ekwenche, were making efforts at reconciling Igbo historical past and present and streamlining them so that the new state will be based on an authentic, ideal, modern Igbo ideology. A good example is that it was some of Ekwenche's research materials and data on the genocide of Igbo by Nigerians that were utilized by Ohaneze and Igbo to forcefully establish their case during the Oputa the Oputa panel, when Nigeria tried making attempt at truth and reconciliation. Another important document which they produced, Ekwenche, is Igbo Leadership Series, in which they articulated most of Igbo society's leadership structure and administration. Many of your listeners will agree that such records are probably the most essential foundations to build on when trying to found a new society or nation state. So when we take all this into account, we can safely say that this current Biafra or Igbo independence struggle did not start now, not even in the past 10 years. In a nutshell, therefore, the Igbo are fighting to found a brand new state or country outside Nigeria, but they are not planning to accomplish that by throwing away their Igbo identity and picking up a new one. The Igbo cannot afford to shade off Nigerian identity only to take on another strange non-Igbo identity. Such institutions like Ekwenche and many wise, reflective individuals have been warning on the dangers that are inherent on such recklessness. They have been clear on the need for an exclusive Igbo ideology-based new national state. Biafra may mean many things to many people, but there has not been any serious contest that the real meaning of Biafra is that it is supposed to be a modern society where law and order, liberty, freedom, and independence is supreme. It is a society where every individual within its borders is free to be themselves, while at the same time respecting the freedoms and liberties of their neighbors. Every citizen of Biafra takes responsibility for their actions. So, in my opinion, regional, is that part of the?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Please go
So,
ahead.
in my opinion, regional autonomy cannot be a viable option as things are now in Nigeria. The fact is that all the ethnic nationalities, or at least 90% of them in Nigeria, are enough to stand on their own as fully viable independent states. The fact is that there is none of them that are not more than many European and Asian countries, both in geographical size and in human population. Regional autonomy, as suggested by the various groups advocating for it, will mean that there will be such things like national defense and international diplomacy that will still connect the various regions together. From the Nigerian experience, no one needs any soothsayer to accurately predict that such arrangement will not work. An example here is that a country's diplomat is an ambassador or the true representative of the people of their country. In this case, perhaps, the single most important reason why Nigeria is not working is that the various ethnic nationalities in Nigeria have never been able to unify their different cultures and worldviews. So, how will a single individual become a comprehensive embodiment of the country to any foreign national or country? Another important point to note here is that the country's national defense force has never been able to function in Nigeria. Promotions and appointments have always been replete with nepotism and are never based on merit. A good example here is that there has never been any unified national response to the prevailing Boko Haram Islamic terrorist and foreign Fulani Islamic terrorist groups invading Nigeria all these years. So how do we guarantee that when the regions are autonomous, that they will suddenly begin to have one voice on such issues?
Good question. Do you have any? Yeah, you know, it's a very good question. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Of course, my thought on that is that it can't happen.
Yeah.
The leopard cannot change its spots. It doesn't suddenly become just because you change name or change some certain things, then everything begins to function as you would wish.
Yeah, this is very important observation. The issue of regional autonomy, you know, has been coming up again and again and again. And one might say, you know, the old, you know, 3 regions of Nigeria, or what will become 4 regions, in a way, you know, that structure was supposed to guarantee some kind of regional autonomy. To the extent to which that worked, of course, remains to be, you know, seen or determined, you know, or evaluated. Well,
yeah, there was no time enough to evaluate whether they would have worked or not, because the country came into existence. I mean, became independent in 1960, and then the 4th region was added in 1963.
Yes.
And the war, the crisis began in 1966. And the war began in 1967. So it was not enough time to properly assess if regionalism could have worked. So, the reality, based on our experiences, our historical experiences, is that that could not have worked in our local circumstance. So, let nobody deceive himself by thinking that I don't know why some people take delight in compromising and complicating things that are so simple and easy. Why do we have to maintain an umbilical cord with people we don't really agree with? Because what is going on with Nigeria is crisis of interest or clashes of interest. And this thing is basically cultural differences. You cannot work with other people that you don't have a unified world view with. That is, there is no magic that can change it. So let us not deceive ourselves by thinking regionalism as a solution to this life and death situation that the people in Nigeria find themselves in. So that's my take on that.
Thank you, my brother. It is indeed a life and death situation. It is, you know, a struggle for our survival. You know, a survival of our people, a survival of everyone.
This is Ikechukwu Ezelora of BCB. Have a wonderful day.
Ndewo n'ụmụnna. I am your friend and brother, Ugonnaya Awele. In this journal, I will tell you one of the tragedies that unfolded in 1966 as part of the memory of the over 30,000 Biafrans killed in the pogrom of May 1966. Ijeluwa looked around his shop, taking stock of what has been his life's work in almost 20 years living in Kaduna. At the right inside corner were stacked bags of beans, 5 bags thick, and rising up to the ceiling of the shop, 15 bags high. To his left, he rested his hand on the table where his wife usually sits to grate beans or maize or rice, whichever it was that needed a thorough hand milling to improve its market quality, or just to while away the time waiting for customers. A tray was still half full with beans there on the table. His own table, with all the lockers open and empty, was pushed to the left side in front of the stacked beans bag. Bags of maize and a half-month's stock of rice were behind his wife's grading table. He turned away only to see the baby's cot wedged into 4 sides by the store's chairs and stools. He leaned forward to remove one of the stools from on top of the baby's cot. Baby will need the cot when they return back to Kaduna, he thought to himself. On a normal day, Ijeluwa knows the market will be so noisy and busy. Things of every kind will be on the display. Loaders, trucks, wheelbarrows, hawkers selling all kinds of instant edibles, shoe shiners, and what have you. On a normal day, that is. But these are not normal days. He sighed and stirred himself to life when he heard the call of greetings as his friend Oji came across the Sockaway drain towards his shop doors. It was just after 3 p.m. on that Thursday in May of 1966. Shall we start going? Oji asked his friend. What are you staring around? Is there anything you still want to take? No, it is just like a week ago. Everything was going on fine, he replied. I need to go to phase 2 to collect threads, you know. It can wait for now. There is a greater urgency. Udozi Obodo wants us to come immediately. I'm just coming back from the luxury park after sending my boys home. Let us go now. It was almost more than a request, coded by the way the message was received by Oji while he was returning from the park. For Igwe had said something specifically about those who own properties, and the messenger was a little Hausa girl, another first. The coup d'etat was in January, yet the fallout from the bloody nature of it has refused to go. Those soldiers were acting on their own. Who sent them? Was there any consensus that we send them to act? The bloody coup was stopped by Ojukwu and by Ironsi. They are both ours. Isn't that enough? Hush, hush, Oji replied. They were on their way to the house of Igwe now. Clan meetings were held every first Sunday of the month at the man's house. He is the unofficial elder of the Igbo community at Sabongari and has been a strong influence in the community when negotiations were needed for peace among the people and their host communities. Kaduna had always been a hotbed of ethnic and religious intolerance. No one seems to be able to control the situation. Sometimes it is blamed on religion, and at other times it may be about the different ethnic groups fighting themselves over issues that are very ordinary, like the squabbles of 2 children down at the streams of Sabongari slums. Whatever it is, whoever started it, whichever community is involved, the fight always comes to Sabongari for settlement. The settlement, you mean? Looting of goods at the shops, destruction of properties, slaughter, killings, maiming, beheading, or anything. It is almost like a demand for sacrificial bloodletting as compensation from the Igbos and other ethnic groups from the southern states of Nigeria. Whenever, whatever, however, no one but the Hausa and the Fulani community can tell. These are not normal times. Ijeluwa's words interjected into their silent thoughts once again. You know, Obidia, my wife, refused to go back home, Oji said, trying to push out a happier thought. I had to bring her senior brother to talk sense into her. And me too. We have 3 different families here, so they all decided to move. I did not have to start with Madam. You know her own is obstinacy, not for the love of me. But the anointing is that we just filled the shop and had made no major sales. If not, His voice trailed into silence. Oji was stoic, but he cannot help thinking about the tears of his baby girl as she clung to him when he was handing her over to his wife at Owerri just a few days ago. He is now back to Kaduna after sending his entire family of 6 children and their mother to the east. He hopes things will cool down soon, for he misses his 3-month-old daughter. I am quite relieved. With 11 children, the youngest being 4 months, 8 girls inclusive, I am immensely happy they are in the homeland now, Ijelowa said. Now it is to manage my 3 houses here, and as I see it, I will lock up the shop until the political situation improves. That is what I will do. Oji nodded, and they walked on silently. The meeting was short. The agenda was a single item. An Igbo trader and his foreman were lynched at the western quarters earlier that day. Apparently, he had gone to collect debts owed him by a Fulani Alhaji. Igwe told the 2 men that he had been sending around for all of their kindreds to ask them to refrain from any interaction with the natives because of frayed nerves over the January coup, especially as the counter coup had led to the killing of the war general, Ironsi. There is a very high tension in the community. A very heightened tension in the community. Even the killing of Obi and his boy today was silently done, he told the 2 men. It was Aisha, my son's girlfriend, who came and asked Chukwuka to leave immediately, that something may happen, because Mr. B and his foreman had just been killed at the Hausa quarters. That was how we knew. Both men instinctively looked around them for confirmation. Igwe smiled back at them. By now, they would already had made the head bridge on Onitsha. He answered their unspoken question. Some other men were arriving as Oji and Ijelowa stood to leave. We must return to the east tomorrow, Ijelowa said, after they had walked some distance from the house. Okay, we will. But did you notice how the youths were not really greeting us again since we had been out? No. Or we were not trying to make eye contact with them like before. Do not read meetings where there is none. But as for tomorrow, we will be home for sure, Oji concluded. In the early hours of the next morning, a Friday in May 1966, Ijelu was woken by loud shouting, or was it chanting coming from a distance? He got up and put on his shirt. He had slept with his trousers on as it was cold last night. Then he walked to the window and peeped through the wooden slits. His blood turned cold all of a sudden. For there, at the far side of the street, he could see a group of around 15 to 20 Hausa and Fulani youths carrying logs and swords. He quickly ran to the backyard, silently opening the back door of the sitting room. From there, he heard the sound of a door being repeatedly hit with what must be logs of wood. The fencing was low, so he crouched down as he shunted towards the side where he could easily slip into the grain hut. He lay there in such an uncomfortable squat. Then he shifted the rafters to search for a path through which he can make a mad dash for the school compound and then onwards to the police station beyond. Then he heard the front doors of his house being battered. He quickly slipped down from the green shed and ran with all his might towards the school compound. Oji had left his house earlier, intending to wake up Ijelowa, and they would start for the park together. But along the way, he was met by a mob. They caught up with him and started hitting him with sticks and logs all over his body. As he fell, someone smashed a log straight to his head. Another hit him directly across his chest where he lay on the ground. This caused his body to bounce on the ground and he lay still. As he was slipping into unconsciousness, he saw his would-be killers instantly make a general race towards the direction of the school compound, leaving him for dead. 20 minutes later, Orji stared. The streets were totally empty, and he could see houses on fire, dead bodies lying everywhere he looked. His eyes could only see like in a haze. There was blood all over his face and neck. His body hot just to be his. He leaned slowly towards the school. That was when he heard the prayer intonation again. They are praying, he thought. Next to the school flagpole was a body cut into pieces. Something made him take a closer look, and he recognized the trousers Ijeluwa wore yesterday. He turned to continue his painful walk, only to see his friend's decapitated head just 2 feet away. He heaved a deep breath as a sob caught in his painful chest. He continued to stagger on, but he did not go to the police station. He entered the nearby bush. Orji lived in the forest for a week, walking, running, just on that southward move in a bid to survive. Then he came out to an unknown village to seek for transportation. It was nearly a month before he got to the house of his friend Ijelowa in eastern Nigeria to tell this story to our family. That was how my uncle Ijelowa was killed at Kaduna, because he is from eastern Nigeria. Among the 3 million Biafrans that died in the war were several train loads of hundreds of mutilated corpses of Easterners summarily executed at the different train stops. Hundreds of Biafrans shot and thrown into the River Niger at Kogi State. Thousands massacred in their villages from Asaba to Iguacha. An estimated 30,000 slaughtered in northern Nigeria by their neighbors and friends. Disarmed Easterners who were members of the Nigerian Army and Nigerian Police Force, killed by their colleagues in May 1966. Corporal Nwafo, who with the bayonet of his empty rifle fought off an advancing enemy to capture an armored car for Biafra, he died few minutes after. Captain Ibi Orwell Brown, who was lost on January 7, 1970 around Oka on his way back from a mission to Ugeli. He was among the 3 officers who hijacked that first commercial aircraft which Biafra turned into a war machine. Bruce Baruch Mayrock, who set himself on fire in the premises of the United Nations headquarters, New York, on 30th of May 1966. We will never forget your sacrifices. We will never forget your sacrifices, ever and forever. I remain your friend and brother, Ugonnaya Awole.
Écoute aimer, écoute aimer, écoute aimer, écoute aimer. Tu es le Dieu vivant, oh, personne n'est comme toi. Écoute aimer, écoute aimer, écoute aimer, écoute aimer. Tu es le Dieu vivant, personne n'est comme toi. Écoute aimer, celui qui dit et qui accomplit. Tu es le Dieu vivant, oh, personne n'est comme toi. Tu guéris les malades, tu sauves les vies brisées. Oui, tu es le Dieu vivant. Non, personne n'est comme toi. Tu touches quelqu'un ce soir, Seigneur. Tu touches une vie ce soir, Seigneur. Oui, tu es le Dieu vivant. Non, 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 personne n'est comme toi. Dieu formidable, inébranlable, Dieu admirable, inimitable. Oui, oui, tu es le Dieu vivant. Personne n'est comme toi. Oui, celui qui dit, qui accomplit. Celui qui dit et la chose arrive. Tu es le Dieu vivant. Personne n'est comme toi. Oui, tu es le Dieu vivant. Oh, personne n'est comme toi. Oui, tu es le Dieu vivant. Et personne n'est comme toi. Oh Jésus, tu es le Dieu vivant. Non, non, personne n'est comme toi. Oh, tu es le Dieu vivant. Personne n'est comme toi. Inébranlable, inimitable. Ah, Seigneur, incomparable. Oh, tu es le Dieu vivant. Personne n'est comme toi. Tu es le Dieu vivant. Personne n'est comme toi. Amen. Merci Seigneur. Merci Seigneur pour ce temps.
This is BCB, and I am Rose Ama. I am here interviewing a brother who experienced the war more than 50 years ago. And since this is Biafra Remembrance Day, we are going back to memory, to recall. But we also want to talk about the future, the present, our perceptions of Biafra, our hope for Biafra. My brother, welcome to our program. Hello.
Thank you.
It's, this is a sad day, a day of remembrance, but it's also a day during, in which we could also be positive that we have survived up till now and that we are continuing the struggle. And this brings me to the first question I have for you. More than 50 years after the Biafra-Nigeria war, we return to Biafra. Is it a reality or an ideology for you? Why now, really? In other words, could you clarify for those who are not sure why we are fighting, what Biafra means to you and those who fought for it and who are still fighting for it?
Thank you for that question. Let me react to the first point, which is Biafra a reality or an ideology? Biafra is a reality. It is our reality. It is the reality of the people who live in the southeastern part of Nigeria. All the people, every single one of them, male, female, adult, child, that's their reality. It is not an ideology. An ideology could be, a belief or, an idea. No, Biafra is not an idea. It's not. You're talking about the life of almost 100 million people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I tell people to take it very, very seriously. The next question you asked is, why now? Actually, my response to that would be the issue of Biafra should have been on the front burner 50-something years ago. Because if you want to understand the quest for Biafra, You have to go back in history and look at the history of Nigeria. Who are the people that currently occupy what we call Nigeria? You talk about, let's start in the north. The Hausa, the Fulani, the Angas, the Bariba, the Busa, the Chamba. Then you come down south, you find Edo, Efik, Ibibi, Ekoi, Igbo. Then you go toward the left, you find Gwari. In the middle, you find Idoma, Igala, Igbira, Ijo. Ijo is in the south. And Isekiri, both of which are in the eastern part. Then you find the Nupe in the western middle belt, and the Tiv in the center, in the middle of the middle belt. You have the Yoruba in southwest, and Durobo, very close to them. I also have to mention the Bini. Now, when you look at all of these people, one thing becomes clear to you when you go back and look at their history. The Kanuri had a Kanuri empire of Borno stretching all the way east and west of Lake Chad. And their civilization lasted a long time. And then you come to the middle, the far north, the middle. You had the Hausa states. These were a collection of autonomous communities. They usually called themselves Birini. And they stretched all the way from Kano to Katsina to Sokoto to Zaria to Kaduna, northern Kaduna. And these people were organizing and ruling themselves until Usman Dan Fodio came in and brought in Islam to them and deceived them into fighting among themselves, because he told them that they were practicing an inferior form of Islam. And he wanted to help them to have a cleaner, purer form of Islam. So what did he do? He started instigating one community against another. And as they fought among themselves, he found out who was stronger and incorporated that person, that community's army into his own. And so like that, he swept all through Kano, Sokoto, Katsina. The funny thing, it's really not funny, the sad thing is each community he conquered, he put a Fulani in charge as the emir with the power of life and death over that community. This was how he conquered all the Hausa states far up north and put Fulani rulers over them. And it has remained like that. The Hausas have now become the vassals of the Fulanis because the Fulani emirs had the power of life and death over them. But remember, initially he told them that what he was doing was religious. He wanted to establish a purer form of Islam. And that went from religion to administration to conquering them and taking over their land. Now you come further down toward the middle belt, you find the Nupe, the Juku kingdoms. These were, below the Hausa states. And these were also independent nations, staying on their own, governing themselves. Of course, you go further down, you find the Tiv and the Idomas right there in the middle before you come down to Igbo land. And down to the southeast, you find the Igbo, the Efik, the Ibibio, the Ijo, the Shekiri, Ishan, the Nurobo. Now, the thing about this group of people is they practiced a very pure form of democracy. They didn't have kings. And if they had anybody who pretended to be a king, they made sure that that person didn't have too much power. You shift to the southwest, the confluence of the Niger and Benue. And what do you see there? The Yoruba had a system of government where they had kings, but they also had, administrators who shared power with the king. And if the king became too powerful, they dethroned him. Up north, what you find is feudalism in northern Nigeria. In most of the far north, especially in the areas around Kano, Sokoto, Zaria, northern Kaduna, Katsina, all of those areas, it is feudalism. Now, think about what the British did. The British conquered northern Nigeria and they conquered southern Nigeria. Initially, they let the two, the protectorate of northern Nigeria and the protectorate of southern Nigeria, exist as independent units. They administered them as independent units because they found that they could not, in terms of their philosophy, their values, their religion, everything, they couldn't work together. But then they found that the North could not provide the financial resources for running northern Nigeria. So what did they do? They merged the two. But instead of making them one nation under one law, what they did was to make the North do whatever it wanted because, it was easier to use the emirs to subjugate the poor people. In the South, they couldn't do that because Southerners had evolved a very, very sophisticated form of democracy, direct democracy. For example, in Igbo land. In Igbo land, if there was a problem, everybody got out to the village square and they sat down and through consultation, negotiation, dialogue, discussion, they arrived at a compromise on what they were going to do. Mm-hmm. In the North, where the emirs were in control, what the emir says is law. You disagree with it at the risk of your life. Now, how will these two merge? That's why they called it amalgamation. They didn't call it unification. No, it was amalgamation. And the reason was, while the southern part of the country was making at that time, about 1.1 million pounds, the northern part of the country was making like 150,000 pounds. So the North couldn't support itself in terms of administrative cost. So they had to use the finances from the South to run the North. It still happens till today. So you find that these were really, there was really no reason why at independence or immediately before independence, the people of southern Nigeria should have been screaming their heads off that they want to continue to retain their system of government, their philosophy of life, their culture, and the way that they have been governing themselves. They should have been screaming about that by 1950 somethings, before even 1960. That is why Biafra is 50 something years too late. The same thing for Oduduwa. But the leaders of the East and the West then were too engrossed in the thought of a big country who will be the giant of Africa, which some people still say today, that they lost sight of looking at the realities they were facing. When negotiation was going on, I think it was in Macpherson Constitution, where the North, they had established a House of Representatives, and the North insisted that it has to have half of the representatives that will be elected into the House of Representatives. That is, the East and the West together could not get half of the, half of the representatives in the House. Why would anybody accept that? Is the question you would. Why would the Southern political leaders accept that?
That's a
that
good
the North had, this authority that even before you present any legislation, they have already decided whether that legislation will pass or not. Just the North, instead of the three regions that were then. Richard's Constitution created the three regions. McPherson, brought in House of Representatives and Senate. So you look at this, and our people were asleep. Our political leaders were asleep at the wheel.
Somebody might say that they still are asleep. Isn't that still happening today?
That is very true. Because I can point at, I don't know how much time we have, but I can point at a whole bunch of things. Okay, look at this. The Nigeria-Biafra war was going on from 1967 to January 1970. All right? 1969, General Yakubu Gowon passed Nigerian National Petroleum Decree, by which decree he unilaterally took away the petroleum resources in Igbo land, Efik, Ibibio, Ijo. He took it away. No negotiation, no consultation, no dialogue, no discussion. It was by decree, by fiat. Hold on. 1978, not satisfied with that. Obasanjo, another military ruler, passed the land use decree. By this decree, all land, including your father's land, where your parents' home is,
yes,
that land belongs to and is held by the governor of your state. That land doesn't belong to you. The governor has to approve for you to build a house on your father's estate.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? No, but they weren't satisfied with that. 1993, General Sani Abacha passed the Water Resources Decree. All the rivers, all the streams, oh my God, all the rivers, all the streams now belong to the federal government. It's not only the rivers, the land adjoining the rivers. Oh, the federal government owns all of them, and we dictate how anything is going to be done with the. I mean, you look at, and what did the people who are our political leaders, what did they say? What did they think? Blows your mind.
Absolutely. In other words, all of these decrees and acts have denied us agency.
Exactly.
We have no rights.
People are screaming now,
but it's
because
late.
Because it has come down to your father's house, your house in which you are living. But look at the history of how these things started. The Fulani started by telling us what they would do. Listen to Ahmadu Bello in 1960 as we were getting independence.
Yes.
And what did he say? The new nation called Nigeria should be an estate of our great-grandfather, Uthman Dan Fodio. We must ruthlessly prevent a change of power. We use the minorities of the North as willing tools and the South as conquered territory, and never allow them to rule over us, and never allow them to have control over their future. Which person in their right mind will listen to this statement and say, oh, okay, let's be in the same country? Listen to Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, who became the Prime Minister of Nigeria. This is what he said. We do not want our southern neighbors, he calls them neighbors, to interfere in our development. We have never associated ourselves with the activities of these people. We do not know them. We do not recognize them. And we share no responsibility in their actions. We shall demand our rights when the time is right. If the British quit Nigeria now at this stage, the northern people would continue their interrupted conquest to the sea. End quote. That's Tafawa Balewa, who became prime minister. He's not only telling you that he has nothing to do with you except to, be in a dictatorship relationship with you.
Mm-hmm.
He was also at that time, this was 1947, he was also telling us, hey, this thing that Usman Danfodio did to the Hausa states, we are going to continue doing that until we get to the sea, to the Atlantic Ocean. And what did our political leaders do? You ask me.
Yeah. It is a colonizing project.
Exactly.
It is. I mean, when you think of it, it's almost like Cecil Rhodes thinking of the British Empire on the continent of Africa, stretching from Cape to Cairo, right?
Yes.
So here is Balewa saying, yes, we will continue our march to the sea. It is a colonizing project.
I can actually, because I know that you have very limited time, but I can actually give you another, as a more recent person, Aliu Gwazo, who was the former head of the Nigerian State Security Service, blotted out the following. When I say that the presidency must come, quote, when I say that the presidency must come to the north next year, I am referring to the House of Fulani Corner and not any northern Christian or Muslim minority tribe. The Christians in the north, such as the Birom, the Tiv, the Kataf, the Jaba, the Zulu, the Sawaya, the Bachama, the Juku, the Idoma, the Bora, the Kilba, Mbala, and all others are nothing. They are nothing. And the Muslim minorities in the north, including the Kanuri, the Nupe, the Igbira, the Babua, the Shua Arabs, the Mahor, the Bade, Bura, the Igala, the Zerma, and the Bariba, and all the others know that when we are talking about leadership in the north and in Nigeria, Allah has given it to us, the Hausa Fulani. They can grumble, moan, and groan as much as they want, but each time they go into their bedrooms to meet their wives, and each time they get on their prayer mats to begin their prayers, it is the Fulani that they think of, that they fear, that they bow to, and that they pray for. Some of them are even ready to give us their wives and daughters for one night sports and pleasure. They owe us everything. This is because we gave them Islam through the great jihad waged by Sheikh Uthman Danfodio. We also captured Ilori, killed their local king, and installed our Fulani emir. We took that ancient town away from the barbarian Yoruba and their filthy pagan gods. We liberated all these places and all these people by imposing Islam on them by force. It was either the Quran or the sword, and most of them chose the Quran. In return for the good works of our forefathers, Allah, through the British, gave us Nigeria to rule and to do with as we please. Since 1960, we have been doing that, and we intend to continue. The Igbo tried to stop us in 1966, and between 1967 and 1969, they paid a terrible price. They were brought to heel, and since they have been broken, no good luck or anyone else will stop us from taking back our power next year. We will kill, maim, destroy, and turn this country into Africa's biggest war zone and refugee camp if they try it. Many say we are behind Boko Haram. My answer is, what do you expect? We do not have economic power or intellectual power. All we have is political power. And they want to take even that away from us. We must fight, and we will fight back in order to keep it. They have brought in the infidels from America and the pigs from Israel to help them, but they will fail. The war has just begun. The Mujahideen are more than ready, and by Allah, we shall win. If they don't want an ISIS in Nigeria, then they must give us back the presidency and our political power. Their soldiers are killing our warriors and our people every day. But mark this, even if it takes 100 years, we will have our revenge. Every Fulani man that they kill is a death that will be repaired. Even if it takes 100 years, the Fulani have very long memories, end quote. This is a man, Aliu Ismail Aliu Gwazo, who was a former head of the Nigerian Secret Security Service.
Yeah, and that is what is, what is really ironic about the situation.
Yep.
And now we're talking about Pantami, or whatever he calls himself.
That's right.
So here we have the Islamic State, in hiding. It's more like the herdsmen are the Trojan horse for these, for ISIS or Boko Haram or Islamic State, that is same people. This language, what we're listening to right now, is no different from what, Hitler was articulating.
Of course.
In relation to the Jews. It is fascism. It is Nazism, in Nigeria. The notion of a conquering superior race, that has been ordained by what? By their own God to govern everybody.
Yeah, this is why I tell you that, the struggle for Biafra should have begun some 60 years ago. It should have begun. The same thing with Odudua, the same thing with the people of the Middle Belt. You can hear what this guy is saying about the Middle Belt. The T, the Idoma, and and the other people of the Middle Belt. We're just going to use you as tools. And that was exactly what they did. Remember, they said these things. Now, as the years have gone by, they started implementing them. Go back to the pogrom of 1966, where they killed over 100,000, people of Eastern Nigeria. Sometimes when they want to play politics, they tell you, oh, they killed only Igbo. Lie, it's not true. Whether the people were in the military, they killed Igbo, Efik, Ijo, Ibibi, Ishan, Ishekiri. They killed them in the 1966 pogrom.
Yes.
Because they called all of them Igbo. They called everybody Igbo.
Yes.
Now, after that, after the 1960s, and then they took over the government, what did they start doing? They started implementing policies to completely destroy the economy and the lifeblood of the people of Eastern region. When they saw that that was failing, they went back to violence. Oh, you hear about this town in far north. There is a riot, and they went into the market and they stole and destroyed property belonging to Ndibo and other people of the.
They did that
they kept doing that. Just one moment. They kept doing that. They kept doing that. The next thing was they started bombing. These luxury buses that were going from the south to the north.
Yes.
Now, what has happened in the past 10 years, and especially since Buhari became president, is they have now brought it down. That violence, they have now brought it down to our homeland. You see the progression. Yes. First, they were born and loot one or two or a number of businesses in the far north, in Kano, in Sokoto, in Meduguri, something like that. Then it started moving down to Kaduna. From Kaduna now into the Middle Belt. From Middle Belt now straight down in our homeland. That's what that whole program of we are going to do this until we get to the sea. It is now that the eyes of our people are opening and they're beginning to see oh my God, this thing is real. But before, when you tell our people that there is this plan of conquest and Islamization, they wouldn't listen to you. They would be too busy, chasing after money. But now I think, they are coming to terms with it.
EBC, one East, one destiny. One East, one destiny. Hail Biafra. Eastern People's Congress, EPC, Eastern People's Congress, for action, EPC, for one East, EPC, for one destiny, EPC, action movement, EPC, Eastern People's Congress, Eastern People's Congress, EPC, Eastern People's Congress, for action, EPC, for one East, EPC, for one destiny, EPC, action movement, EPC, Eastern People's Congress.
This is BCB. We are in conversation with the Prime Minister of Biafra Provisional Government. So here we go. We are doing this particular program on May 30th, which is Biafra Remembrance Day. On this day, we remember those we lost during the war more than 50 years ago, as well as those whom we have lost to the hostilities that currently plague us. So, Mr. Prime Minister, what do you remember about the war? Did you lose any relatives or relative directly or indirectly because of that war? A lot of people that you'll be speaking to right now lost, relatives. And you mentioned earlier that you have an uncle who also participated, who fought during that war.
Yes, thank you for that question. Once again, I welcome all Biafrans and friends of Biafra, wherever you are. And I thank you for listening. I didn't witness the war myself, but I have read so much about it. And I've spoken to a lot of veterans, including my uncle, who fought the war. Actually, two of my uncles fought the war, but one was killed in the war front.
Hmm.
So my father's youngest brother, Jonathan Shedozie, was killed in battle, fighting for his nation. I lost somebody very dear to me, even though I didn't meet him, but I know him so well. My mother has told me so much, and my father told me so much about him. And I'll tell you this, and for me, this sums up the spirit of Biafra, his attitude and his determination to serve was exceptional. So one of the days he, with three of his comrades in the army, they had a break, and they were again going back to the war front, but stopped over at my mom and dad's house at the time, somewhere in eastern Nigeria, to eat and refresh themselves before heading back into battle. They were happy young men, happy to fight for their motherland, to fight for the injustice, and to be and to stand up and be counted. So my mother gave them food, and after eating, they were about to go. So my dad wasn't at home. My dad was working for the Christian Council at the time. We were helping distribute food and relief materials that were coming in, and he was working with the church. So mom was home alone with two of my sisters who were born at the time, who were very young. And so Jonathan and two of his friends, they were dressed in military uniform. They were ready to go back to the war front. So my mom was trying to devise a means to stop them. He wanted to lock the door. He wanted to keep them until my father came back. And he wanted to discourage them from going back because she was so petrified, so afraid that they will get killed. But my uncle refused to be locked in. My mom took him to the backyard and said, Jonathan, don't go. Wait for your brother to come back. Don't go. And he said, no, 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 we have to go now. We have to go now. My mom held him down and he refused and he broke away. I said to mom, don't worry, I'll be back. Don't worry, I'll be back. And he left. And that was the last my mom saw him. And my dad had to go and recover his body after a number of weeks. And as you can imagine, when someone is died in the war front and been out there for a number of days, to recover that will be a very, very painful and excruciating experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, and he took pictures, and we saw the pictures of the decaying body from the field, and that was something that will never leave my memory. So, and for all men and women who fought and paid the ultimate sacrifice, we honor them, we respect them. There is nothing anyone can do to wipe that memory away. They don't remember them in Nigeria, but we have to remember them. We have to build a memory. We have to restore our nation and build a memorial for them and remember them properly. And I'm glad that we're doing this ceremony now every 30th of May to pray, to meditate, and to remember them and to honor them. It's the right thing to do. We live in advanced countries, the United Kingdom, in the United States, in Russia, everywhere. They remember their war dead. They remember all of them. And we should remember ours. I speak regularly to some veterans who are still alive, and they tell me stories of things that they suffered at the time. And for people who, actually witnessed the war and have written about them, we've read their stories, excuse me. And it's littered with brilliance. The ingenuity of our officers and the population, their determination and their sense of unity in trying to secure their freedom, in trying to make sure that they are not wiped out, because it was a genocide.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it was. It
Yeah.
was a genocide. It was a plan, an attempt to exterminate a race, our race. Because you cannot tell me that the Nigerian Air Force could not distinguish between a marketplace and a military facility. So the Egyptian fighters that they were using to fly their aircraft, they are bombing our markets, our hospitals. One of the stories had it that in Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Umuahia, it had on the roof of it the logo of the Red Cross. And these Nigerian planes came saw the logo of the Red Cross and still bombed the hospital and killed patients, innocent people, children, women, you know. And my elder brother was actually born during the war, and my mom was in the labor ward, about to give birth, and one of the attacks came. The fighter jets came, flown by Egyptians, and started bombing the hospitals, the midwives, so everybody ran away and left my mom under the table in the labor ward,
Oh my goodness.
and she just barely survived that attack. So and so it was, there are stories. If you read how our men and women, stood up, almost with nothing against the might of the British, of the British nation, who was supplying the Nigerian state all the, ammunition, all the bombs, all the automatic weapons against the international convention, to keep the war, where they thought they were going to annihilate us in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but it wasn't so. And even in 3 years, they could not win. I read stories about how Owerri was reclaimed, how we pushed them back from Owerri into Port Harcourt, and how, Oka was reclaimed, how Onitsha was reclaimed, and Colonel Chizie and many of them, I can and so many of them, I can't remember all their names now, and their strategy and how they manufactured, uh, uh, um, Ubunigwe, as they called it at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and locally made, things that they used
Mm-hmm.
to fight, because there was a blockade imposed on the whole of our territory.
Mm-hmm.
So we couldn't get the required arms and ammunition that we needed. We couldn't get food, and that's why 1 million children died of kwashiorkor,
Mm-hmm.
malnutrition, because of lack of food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the brilliance of our people, of our leader, and our troops is something, every young person needs to go and read about. There's nothing they can do to hide the history. Every young person, man, boy, girl, needs to go in the internet now. It's all over. You have access to the internet now. It's accessible. They've been trying to bury the history. They're not teaching history to our children at home now, but you can teach yourself. Go and read about these things, and you will be glad you did.
Exactly. I mean, this is important. It is important to have this Remembrance Day. It is important to commemorate. It is important to remember,
It's
to
it, it's incredibly important. Let me add also. Not all those you've talked about the pogrom, and it was terrible. We remember them as well. The over 50,000 that were slaughtered in the three phases of the pogrom. We
mm-hmm.
remember them, and since the war ended up to today, millions also have been killed.
Exactly.
Either because we're just Biafrans or because we are Christians. Our churches have been burned, our priests killed on a regular basis, and the Nigerian army, the Nigerian police have sort of taken over our territory, and police brutality, victimization, killing of innocent people,
And now
on
the
police.
herdsmen.
Yeah, and now the Fulani headsmen that are armed by the federal government, by Buhari-led administration, have armed the headsmen, and they're just destroying our communities, killing our priests, and burning churches. From communities in Ebonyi State to Enugu Ezike in Enugu State to Abia State, everywhere in our homeland,
Mm.
they're killing. We can't safely go to our farm. So we remember every single Biafra life that's been lost all this while, up to today, up to today. We remember them,
Mm,
we honor them. You
mm.
know, they've given their life, they've died because of this same circumstance, this same genocidal circumstance we find ourselves, because the enemy wants to take over our land. The enemy wants to exterminate us. The enemy don't want us to practice our religion and practice our business in a safe and, you know, competitive environment, like any other human being on earth.
You're absolutely right. It is important to name it, to call it what it is. It does not make sense to shy away from naming it a genocide. It is a genocide. It is a genocide. In fact, the first one on the continent of Africa during, in the 20th century. Other genocides have occurred, but
Yeah,
the genocides that have been prominent, at least right now, so far, have been genocides, the cases of Rwanda and Darfur in Sudan. But Biafra was really the very first genocide on the continent. There
that's
is,
correct.
if you think about it, we remember Rwanda, we remember Darfur. There is no marker on the ground somewhere nationally or regionally where, anyone can sit or stop to contemplate what happened to, Biafrans during those three, between 1966 and 1960 and 1970.
Yeah,
We talk about, if we think about, the UN definition of genocide, that's it. It's a carefully crafted plan to exterminate an entire group, either because of their, language or their ethnicity or their race or their religious practices, and it is ongoing. It has not stopped. They
yeah,
bombed us, they starved us. Let's not forget that they
yeah.
actually used food as weapon of war.
Of
Remember
war,
General
absolutely.
Brigadier Adekunle saying, "We want to just kill them, shoot them. We don't care. We
Yeah,
just shoot and we starve them." So yes, some of our people don't, who were not there. I was very young when it was happening. It was my teenage years. I remember
yeah,
that our schools were closed. We couldn't go to school. They were bombing us out all the time you know
yeah.
so it is trauma that we cannot forget, and we have to keep it on, foregrounded.
Absolutely. We
Remind
need
our
to be
people
able to tell
that
our
this,
own stories. If
yeah, we
people are
have
not,
to.
and, and,
Exactly.
and the reason, Rose, I tell you the reason why they're trying to sweep it under the carpet. They don't want to mention the Afro genocide. Is because um, the international community, a lot of countries were complicit
Uh-huh.
to this crime
Mm-hmm.
against Biafra.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the top on the list is the colonial
Nations.
master, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the United Kingdom. Yeah, we're totally complicit. We know all the reports or what the British Parliament, the government under a the Labour Party did, what the Prime Minister did at the time in supplying, uh, 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 you know, hardware to go on, and in numbers that are not allowed by international law, secretly, without even approval of his parliament. And they were only interested in safeguarding their investment in oil
Yes.
in Biafra land.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to make sure that they did everything to stop Biafran and to kill Biafran in order to safeguard their millions of pounds of investment in oil. in Nigeria. So they were complicit, and America, and those of them that stood idly by and watched millions and millions of children die of hunger, and millions of over 3 million people die, slaughtered, and by bombs made supplied by Britain, and for America to be quiet and other nations to be quiet about it, keep silent, means they were complicit as well. And apart from Tanzania under Nyerere and Ivory Coast and Zambia and Haiti and those nations that stood by us and made it public and recognized the country and said that these people have the right to be left alone to exist. They should stop killing them and recognize them. And about the rest are complicit with that genocide, and that's why they're doing everything that they can to make sure no one is tried. A lot of people that committed that crime are still alive today. General Gowon is alive today. No one has tried them. It was his commanders that rounded up all the male people in Asaba
And
in the
shot
current
them.
Delta State and shot them,
Yep.
you know, and killed every male human being in Asaba. It was it
Every
was it
male
was Moritala Mohammed
above
that led, yeah, that led that. That was genocide.
mm-hmm,
And it wasn't only in Asaba that it happened. It
mm-hmm,
happened in so many other communities.
mm-hmm.
You mentioned that Dekunle as well. And so some of the so Gowon was leading them at the time, and no one has tried him for war crime and crime against humanity and for the crime of genocide.
Indeed. Indeed. I mean, and the complicity has not stopped. They are still complicitous. Look at
Yeah.
what's happening right now. There is no reason why, the world should not be screaming about what is happening right now, in Nigeria, where again, a particular group of people, particular region is targeted,
Hmm.
targeted for, extermination or destruction.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it is, or destabilization. The goal is to destabilize the region and watch it fall apart so that they can then march in. And this brings me to the next question, in fact, that has to do with, security. In Biafra, currently no one is safe. We've been talking about this. No one is safe either from the Nigerian security forces or the Fulani herdsmen who are part of the, Islamic State, West Africa, and of course some indigenous people who have either colluded with these groups or engaged in their own insane activities. No one is safe, not a child, not any man, not any woman. So given the fact that the violence is escalating daily and threatens to destabilize the region, what message do you have for the citizens and especially the youth who are being targeted by these groups? Just recently, I don't know, I can't confirm, but I looked at the video that was sent to me from somebody in Aba who was screaming that some Somali-like thugs or terrorists had stopped at some corner and then started grabbing young men and tossing them into Hilux vans and then driving off with them. There were no reasons provided, and these people
Hmm.
were armed. How do we
Yeah.
protect our youth? What do you say to the young people? What do you say to people who are worried about going out? They can't operate under these kinds of conditions.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Listen, because the situation in our land is very, very worrying. If anyone is not worried, then they are being misguided. But I want to say one thing. I want to be really clear about one thing. And people need to understand this. The international community need to understand this. And I think they know, but they need to act. The Nigerian government under Muhammadu Buhari is a sponsor of terrorism and terrorist activities. And that is what they are using to destabilize eastern Nigeria, Biafra land. It is all part of their jihadist agenda to take over the whole area, which they believe is the estate of their father, Usman Dan Fodio. They believe that they are continuing the jihad of the 18th century, and they must complete the jihad and dip the Quran in the sea. So this is their mindset. This is why Buhari wanted to be president at all costs. He tried 4 times. And this is why during his campaign that led to him becoming president in 2015, he threatened that baboons and monkeys will soak in blood if he didn't win. This is why he is the grand patron of the Mayati Allah Cattle Ranchers Association, aka Fulani Herdsmen. This is why the Boko Haram people chose him as their negotiator when Goodluck Jonathan was president and trying to wipe out the terrorist group Boko Haram. So he has always been there sponsoring terrorists. And recently, if anyone is in doubt, you should now see that he appointed his communications minister, what's his name, was recorded to have made comments in support of terrorists. Pantami, his current minister, and there has been an outcry, people calling for his resignation because of comments he made in his when he was in his 20s.
Mm-hmm.
This is not long ago, say 10 years or 15 years ago, thereabout, supporting Osama bin Laden, supporting the head of Boko Haram, and supporting the activities of terrorists in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same person that General Buhari has appointed into his inner cabinet. And he's running a program of collating data from all Nigerians. And they recently opened up the Nigerian border for Fulani people from other countries to flood into Nigeria. And he's giving them these NIN numbers that they are using that will be the common identifier of everybody. You need to open bank accounts, to run your phone, and to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a plan to flood the country with terrorists and Fulani headsmen and arm them. And the bandits that have been killing people, kidnapping people, and killing people all over the place, from the middle belt down to the south and to the east, are the people that Buhari and his people hired from outside Nigeria for his election, armed them to cause mayhem if they lost that election. If not for the wisdom and understanding of President Goodluck Jonathan, the country would have been reduced to rubble. So but he cleverly, he knew that APC rigged the election. He knew that. So he cleverly handed over peacefully to save millions from being killed, because he knew what they were planning. So, a very short advice to all our young people back home: please stay away from harm's way. Please Be safe in whatever you are doing. We know what is happening, but we need to be patient and you need to stay alive. Do not get involved in confronting the police or the army. Do not get involved in fighting with them. Stay safe. Go about your business. Do not, if you can avoid night travels, please avoid night travels. If you are using public transport, please do not engage in any conversations with strangers. Even if they raise this conversation, they start the conversation, please do not engage in that conversation, whatever it might be. Your parents, your wife, your children need you to be home in the evening after your day's work, after your day's business. You have the right to agitate. You have the right to self-determination. You have the right to be free. But we cannot continue to give these people opportunity to kill us. So please, whatever you need to do to stay safe, I urge you to stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. It seems to me that you actually have addressed the last question, which is your message to our youth, and you have done that. I'm glad that we had this conversation. This has been very insightful, and I hope that our people, those of us who are listening, that they have also gained from this conversation with you. It is important, and I hope that we do this again in the future. So
Thank you very much.
thank
And I'm always available.
thank you, thank you. This ends our conversation with the Prime Minister. We're back, and I am speaking to my brother, Prof, here, who has given us a very detailed, account, history of the making of today's wobbly nation named Nigeria and how Biafra is stuck in it. So, Prof, May 30th is Biafra Remembrance Day. And that's why we're talking to you today, really. We remember those we lost during that war more than 50 years ago, as well as those we have lost to the hostilities directed at our people since that war. What do you remember about that war? Did you lose any relatives? You indicated earlier that you recall that war. Did you lose any relatives directly or indirectly? Did you participate in the war in any way? And this will be important for our veterans too.
Yeah, I participated in several ways. I was a very young man then. I also lost a very close brother who looked, a lot like me. We had the same age, looked very much alike. I lost him during the war, and I lost a couple of friends. But I guess the key thing for me is, what does 30th day of May represent for Biafrans? Listen to one of the music, I think it is Celeste Nuku. On the 30th day of May, the Republic of Biafra came to be. Now, what should 30th day of May be? It should be a day of rejoicing, a day of happiness, because that is the day we said we are sick and tired of being in Nigeria. We want to be independent. That was our day of freedom.
Yes, indeed.
We are going to be independent. We are free. So that's the way I look at 30th day of May. The Remembrance Day, that is the day on which we wear sackcloth and cry and pray for the souls of our brothers who were killed both during the pogrom of 1966, during the, killing of brothers and sisters during the war between 1967 and 1970, and immediately after the war, because so many people were also killed immediately the war ended.
Yes.
That day, in my opinion, should be on the worst day of the pogrom, which was September 29th, but preferably October 1. This October 1 to almost to the end of October was the worst day in the history of the people of Eastern region in northern Nigeria, where over 50,000 people were killed. Pregnant women were disemboweled, and the fetus that they had in their abdomen was pulled out, kicked like a football before being slaughtered. Young people, old men were killed in every town, in every city, all over northern Nigeria, all over northern Nigeria. So that should be the day we set aside, in my opinion, for mourning for all of those people who were mercilessly slaughtered. We're not talking about those who were injured. We're talking about those who were killed. Men, women, children, people set on fire. So that's the way I look at it, that, May 30th should be our day of celebration of our independence, while we reserve October 1, for example, as our day of mourning. I really feel shocked when I see Igbo, Efik, Ibibi, Ijo, Ogoja, Ishan celebrating and drinking on October 1. I just ask myself, what are they celebrating? This is your day, the day that the genocide against Biafrans or against the people of Eastern region started in earnest. That was the day, October, from the night of September 29th into October 1, and it lasted for the entire month of October. So what are you celebrating in October?
That's, and that's important. And this is why it is necessary for us to remember, history. Part of celebration, let's say we were to celebrate May 30th, recall it as a celebratory day. But
right.
Part of that is also recalling history. Something happened to us.
Exactly.
You're absolutely correct. I was a teenager. We were going to school in the north when, this was happening. And we heard stories, horrible stories, people running, arriving, into our community without shoes, without clothing, almost dead.
Yes.
Stories. We knew people in Kaduna, we knew people in Zaria, we knew people in Kanu who were
young women.
Young women.
Young women like you. In most of these places, they collected young women from Eastern region and they sent them to these lepers in their leper colonies.
Yes.
To defile them. You can't, oh no.
Young women were raped, students massacred, businesses burned, people gutted. So we do remember this. You're absolutely correct. October 1 should be the day that we sit down and mourn.
Yes.
And recall the horror that we went through. But
exactly.
For some reason, people have chosen May 30th, one in remembrance of the day that the state of Biafra came into being. But perhaps it's also to say, let's pull all of these together instead of having two separate days. I don't know.
Sometimes it takes a while for people to reflect on the decision that they have made, because May 30th was a day of joy all over the former eastern region of Nigeria.
Yes.
People were, celebrating and enjoying themselves because that was the day we threw off the yoke of Nigerian nationhood. We threw it off and we said, no, we are different people now, before Nigeria declared war on Biafra. So that should be a day of celebration of our independence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Biafrans, you have heard. It is up to you to either continue celebrating October 1, a day that is a bloody day for us, as a day of celebrating whose independence, or we look at it in protest. Instead of celebrating the independence of a nation that refuses to acknowledge us, we use that day to mourn our people dead and the atrocities that have been committed against us. Thank you, Prof, for this opportunity, for taking us back to history, for giving us a chance to recall and to sit and to reflect. It is important. We return to our conversation with Brother Osita ABM. So we continue, Brother Osita. In thinking of Biafra, who or what would you include? And given the diversity of ethnicities in contention, how do you assure those groups who are reluctant to join this struggle that it is also about them or for them, or that their voice is important?
Thank you for that question. In this current struggle for Biafra, Igbo independence, for Biafra or Igbo independence, there has never been any contention that it is the struggle for an exclusive Igbo state. It has never been hard to show that every serious and intellectually sound group and individual has always known that this present Igbo struggle for independence is for an Igbo-only state. They may start out talking about Biafra as constructed by Ojukwu, but every sincere and honest group or individual sooner or later experiences that epiphany, and if they are bold enough, they usually come out publicly with their conviction that this is only for an Igbo only country we are fighting for. For a starter, it has never been difficult to find out so many reasons why and how Ojukwu's Biafra is very different from the present struggle for Igbo freedom and independence. In actual fact, to some people, it is wrong or a misnomer to refer to the project today as Biafra, and some use it only for ease of reference. Mostly it is the activists that refer to it as Biafra, while serious intellectuals know the difference. For anyone who cares, they can make references to the works of such serious Igbo thinker and writer, Herbert Ekwekwe. Ekwekwe and other Igbo clear thinkers have always known that the circumstances and conditions that produced Ojukwu's Biafra are not exactly what are producing the current struggle for Igbo to leave Nigeria. Any sincere and honest person, even when blindfolded, will see that the same irreconcilable differences in culture and worldviews, which have successfully torn Nigeria into shreds and caused untold pains and heartaches to most Nigerian peoples, are clearly present in Ojukwu's Biafra as is. Ojukwu's Biafra map clearly excludes nearly half of Igbo population on the west side of the Niger. In summary, it will be foolhardy for any Igbo to leave Nigeria only to form another smaller Nigeria with a different name. Another important fact is that each of these ethnic nationalities does not need any assurances, in quotes, from the Igbo. Each of them can surely successfully struggle and secure their own sovereign independence without any assistance or assurances, in quotes, from the Igbo. And they all know this. An example is the Ogoni nation. Over the years, they have continued to make progress towards achieving their freedom and independence from Nigeria without making any noise about it or waiting for any assurances from the Igbo. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. This is quite a unique perspective, and it gives, us opportunity to contemplate where we are. What are we fighting for? Is it an autonomous Igbo nation? Is it an autonomous Biafra, which is perhaps larger than an Igbo nation? These are big questions, and they are big questions that require big and complex responses. Given,
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
so please go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes, that is true, because this issue we are fighting for is a big or large subject, and we should not approach it with a simplistic yardstick. We should try to look at it in a broader perspective, and also try to bring everything up to date. Okay, because 1967 or 1966 is quite different from 2001. 2021. Very different, and circumstances and conditions with time change, and you don't expect our situation to be static.
Of course not.
We have moved on. Ojukwu have had his Biafra, and we cannot have Ojukwu's Biafra. It can't work in this present situation for the Igbo people. The circumstances surrounding Ojukwu's Biafra are very clear, and why they came up with it is very clear. But this is not what is driving the people fighting for Igbo freedom today. It's not the same thing in any way, and we have to. We shouldn't be fixed in time, be frozen on time, the time of 1967. We have to bring everything up to speed, as up to date.
Okay. Well, in other words, we have to consider the pressures that we are confronting, today. What are those pressures? And now that brings me to, this question of a message to today's Biafra youth, or today's youth in our region or in our areas or Igbo land, whichever one you choose, many of whom do not know the history of the struggle or don't even understand it, who also face uniquely different pressures from the pressures some of us are facing, or the ones, who preceded them faced. So what kind of message do you have for them? What would you like to say to them, especially on this day that is May 30th, Biafra Remembrance Day?
Thank you. Yes, today is May 30th, Biafra Remembrance Day, and it's very important in Igbo annals of history. So, so I will say it is the most sobering day in modern Igbo history. There is hardly any Igbo family which did not lose a family member or more. Biafra remains the greatest Igbo tragedy of modern time. So May 30 will remain will still be remembered in Igbo state or country long after its freedom and independence. I personally lost my grandfather in the war. My advice to the present day youths who are involved in Biafra struggle is simple. They should also expend the same amount of energy that they use in activism in trying to research and study to know the true story of Biafra from different perspectives. They should know that without true knowledge, that activism is never enough. Mere social media bits and pieces of propaganda is not enough. They must go beyond that. They have all the time to get it right. You see, that's what I keep telling people. They have all the time to get it right. Ojukwu and co did not have the luxury of time as we have it today. So for those who are recklessly pursuing some, speed, that is not going to help us. But today we have time enough to get it right. They should know that unbridled speed and recklessness will only continue to set everyone back rather than forward. There is an abundance of reading materials on the subject, and they should try to explore them so that they will get better understanding of the situation. And finally, if they must be involved, they must read to have a more holistic and comprehensive grip on the intellectual basis for the struggle, so that they will make less mistakes and then reduce the loss of life as it is today. That's my take.
Thank you, my brother. You have given us a lot to think about. You've also given us a lot to work on. This is wonderful. This is needed advice. This is needed perspective. It is necessary. We have to be willing to hear all perspectives. We have to be willing to listen to one another. We cannot engage in diversive activities. We have to be willing to remember our history, to understand our history, to know where the rain started to fall on us or to beat us, so that we know where we are going. My brother Osita ABM has spoken. I hope we have listened. Thank you for this wonderful exchange.
You're welcome.
This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. This is Rose Ama.
Mungu unaye Niajiwe mchungaji, tegemeo langu, kimbilio langu, Mungu unaishi, hakuna kama wewe. Bwana ukitoa hugeuka.
To all friends of Biafra, we say thank you. As a people steeped in humane living, it is in the Biafran cosmology and DNA to say thank you on any and every occasion that a good deed, solicited or unsolicited, is done towards us. It is a debt. It is therefore important we continue to remember the specific as well as collective roles and sacrifices of those individuals, groups, organizations, and nations that helped Biafra to survive between 1967 and 1970. This May 30th, Biafra anniversary, we remember you. To all our friends who stood solidly behind us, when almost the entire powers that be in the world conspire to wipe Biafra out through a calculated genocide, this is the time to say thank you. Without you, the story would not have been about 3 million that died during the Biafran War of Independence, but would have been about a gregarious, boisterous, deeply Christian ethnic groups wiped out completely from the face of Mother Earth. You said no, and today we are alive and can finally say thank you. We cannot forget the invaluable humanitarian love and concern shown to Biafra by sister countries like Gabon, Haiti, Cote d'Ivoire, Tanzania, and Zambia. That in spite of outright world opinion to the contrary, you openly recognize the independence of the independent state of Biafra, and those like Israel, France, Spain, Portugal, Norway, Sweden, Rhodesia, South Africa, and the Vatican, who gave us maximum support, especially in logistics and humanitarian aids to survive. We say thank you. We also would like to use this opportunity to thank the humanitarian heroes who stood in the gap when our situation as a young nation fighting for our very survival was at stake. They were there through thick and thin and endured indignities just to save Biafran children and the Biafran people. They were not fazed by the horrors of Kwashoko or the incessant intimidation by the might of the then Nigerian government, gone rogue against all international convention of war. Our lives became their lives, our burdens their burden. We'll never thank you enough, but we say thank you. We would like to mention the Irish priests, ably led by our own dear Bishop Shanahan, who refused all entreaties and sat it out with his Biafran flock throughout the war. I had to pay a terrible price for it. He was jailed after the war in 1970 by the Nigerian government after a farce of a trial in Port Harcourt. As you continue to rest in peace, we say thank you. We will never, ever forget you. You were not only any Biafra, but Biafra personalized and internationalized. Through you, we also thank each Irish priest and Reverend Sister who stood and battled for our very lives we live today. Not to be forgotten, we are also your brethren in Christ, the Anglican clergy, and all the clergies of other denominations who stayed behind and physically fought and defeated Kwashoko and gave us life. Also remembered in fun and evergreen memories are the Christian organizations like Caritas and the World Council of Churches. Another interesting group of Biafran friends we will never forget, and we want to also thank, are the very young pilots and technicians who came when they saw the horror we are passing through, the unceasing bombings of children in hospitals and Red Cross centers, and unarmed civilians in markets and churches, grew angry and left all their comfort zones to come to the defense of humanity and succeeded. We are alive today, and thanking you is the evidence. The International Red Cross will also thank you. The Biafran War was your first real challenge of such magnitude, and you did not fail us despite the federal government of Nigeria's intransigence. Biafra became a pilot test for the other successful interventions you made and still making all over the world. What about the individuals who could not come to Biafra land physically, but mobilized world opinion, raised resources morning and night, and made sure that we did not die? We, today, remember the likes of Steve Jobs, Bruce Myrock, Dr. Herman Meadow-Klopp of the World Council of Churches, Johann Lennon and his wife, Yoko Ono, Miss Miriam Rake of the USA, Ron Archer, a relief pilot, Medicine Sans Frontiers, Doctors Without Borders, David L. Coren, Edward Kinney, President of Catholic Relief Society, Dr. Bernard Coucher, a Frenchman, August Martin, first black American commercial pilot who died in a crash, bringing relief to us in Biafra, Dresden E. Johnson from Ireland, a pilot who also died in a crash, flying relief to Biafra, Reverend Father Tony Bryan of the CSSP, Tessie Johnson, leader of Canadian Presbyterian Church, of course, Roy Steiner, Tafty Williams, Peter O'Toole, Johnny Correa, Bob Dennard, Bob Gilson, Count Gusten von Rossen, the grandfather who flew the Biafran Minicons. Of course, we never forget the 27 other relief pilots and crew members who died that we may live. We also remember the French Red Cross, the American Catholic Relief Services, North Church Aid, Joint Church Aid aka Jesus Church Airlines, American Jewish Agency, Canadian Relief Organization, Canaan Relief made up of the Presbyterian and Oxfam of Canada, Church World Services, Diakonische Wake, the Church Group of Germany, Holy Ghost Airlines run by the Irish Holy Ghost Fathers, Save the Children Fund, UNICEF, etc. But do you know that 51 years after, Nigeria is still bombing and killing Biafrans? My name is Mazi Odogu. I come in peace.
This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, and I am Rose Ama. We wish to thank the leadership of Biafra Provisional Government for sponsoring BCB and this Remembrance Day program. We are especially grateful to our technical person and our print reader for keeping us alive and efficient. We could not do this job without them. Also, we wish to thank our people, all those who have joined us today, and all those who have stood by us through this struggle. We thank our affiliates for their commitment to the struggle. Our goal is the same, the achievement of a free and independent Biafra. May our ancestors and gods guide our efforts on this long road to freedom. We wish you all peace because our freedom is coming tomorrow. Yes, we can shout it out. Freedom is coming tomorrow. Fellow Biafrans, we now come to the close of our program with a special remembrance of Christopher Okigbo, a legendary son of Biafra, hero, brother, warrior, and poet. In his novel, There Was a Country, Chinua Achebe mourns Okigbo, registering his sadness on the loss of Christopher Okigbo in this passage titled Death of the Poet. Daddy, don't let him die. Achebe writes, I was driving from Enugu to Ogidi one afternoon where I lived following the bombing with my car radio tuned to Lagos. Like all people caught in a modern war, we had become radio addicts. We wanted to hear the latest from the fronts We wanted to hear what victories Nigeria was claiming next, not just from NBC Lagos, but even more ambitiously from Radio Kaduna. We needed to hear what the wider world had to say to all that. The BBC, the Voice of America, the French radio, Cameroon radio, Radio Ghana, Radio Anywhere. The Biafran forces had just suffered a major setback in the northern sector of the war with the loss of the university town of Nsukka. They had suffered an even greater morale-shattering blow with the death of that daring and enigmatic hero who had risen from anonymity to legendary heights in the short space of 18 months, Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzogwu. Christopher Okigbo had begun to talk more and more about Nzogwu before his enlistment, but I had not listened very closely. The military did not fascinate me as it did him. In hindsight, I wish I had listened for all our sakes. I was only half listening to the radio now when suddenly Christopher Okigbo's name stabbed my slack consciousness into panic life. Quote, rebel troops wiped out by gallant federal forces, unquote, the announcement proclaimed. Among the rebel officers killed, Major Christopher Okigbo. It's rather different when a soldier is killed in battle. They get the body. I don't know what happens, but if they can identify him and if they think they can make capital out of it, they immediately announce it. The killing of officers is something of which they are very proud. Christopher Okigbo was a major. I pulled up at the roadside. The open parkland around Nachi stretched away in all directions. Other cars came and passed. Had no one else heard the terrible news? When I finally got myself home and told my family, my 3-year-old son Ike screamed, "Daddy, don't let him die." Ike and Christopher had been special pals. When Christopher came to the house, the boy would climb on his knees, seize hold of his fingers, and strive with all his power to break them, while Christopher would moan in pretended agony. "Children are wicked little devils," he would say to us over the little fellow's head, and let out more cries of feigned pain. Christopher fell in August of 1967 in Ekwebe, close to Nsukka, where his poetry had come to sudden flower 7 short years earlier. News of his death sent ripples of shock in all directions. Christopher's exit was totally in character. Given the man and the circumstance, it was impossible for everyone to react to the terrible loss in the same way. The varied responses, I think, would have pleased Okigbo enormously, for he enjoyed getting to his destination through different routes. And here is Achebe's poem for Okigbo. A wake for Okigbo. For whom are we searching? For whom are we searching? For Okigbo, we are searching. Nzomalizo. Has he gone for firewood? Let him return. Has he gone to fetch water? Let him return. Has he gone to the marketplace? Let him return. For Okigbo, we are searching. Nzomalizo. For whom are we searching? For whom are we searching? For Okigbo, we are searching. Nzomalizo. Has he gone for firewood? May Uboko not take him. Has he gone to the stream? May Iyi not swallow him. Has he gone to the market? Then keep from him. You tumult of the marketplace, has he gone to battle? Please, Obonike, step aside for him. For Okigbo, we are searching. Nzomalizo. They bring home a dance. Who is to dance it for us? They bring home a war. Who will fight it for us? The one we call repeatedly. There's something he alone can do. It is Okigbo we are calling. Nzomalizo. Witness the dance, how it arrives, the war, how it has broken out. But the color of the dance is nowhere to be found. The brave one in battle is nowhere in sight. Do you not see now that whom we call again and again, there is something he alone can do? It is Okigbo we are calling. Nzomalizo. The dance ends abruptly. The spirit dancers fold their dance and depart in mid-rain. In midday, rain soaks the stalwart, soaks the two-sided drum. The flute is broken that elevates the spirit. The music part shattered that accompanies the leg in its measure. Brave one of my blood, brave one of my land, brave one in the middle of so much blood, owner of riches in the dwelling place of spirit, Okigbo is the one I am calling. Nzomalizo. Today, we also hold a wake for all those we have lost in the struggle on this long road to freedom, all those who survived, all those who are present, all of us, and for Biafra that was and that we hope will be. It is a celebration. This is a celebration. This is a remembrance. This is a commemoration. Brave ones of my blood, brave ones of Biafra, brave ones in the middle of so much blood, owners of riches in the dwelling place of spirit. You, my people, you are the ones. You, my people, are the ones I am calling. Nzomalizo. This is Rose Ama. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra.
He will